All right, well, welcome to this week's Ask Us Anything. It's been a pretty busy week. Has anyone got any news in particular?
Yeah, I have. I damaged a car backing it out the other day,
Oh, no.
and I got Andrew from Smart Finish in today, and he did a beautiful job. You wouldn't even know there was anything wrong with it.
Cool.
Yeah, cool, nice.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
$350 it cost. It was bloody peanuts for what he did.
So no paint scratching or anything, just denting?
It was just on the front bumper, but made a bit of a mess of it. But took him about 3 hours, and it's good that he can come to the house and do it. You don't have to take it over to get done somewhere, and it's as good as got. You know, you couldn't get a better job.
Yeah, cool. Excellent, good scoop.
Yeah.
So before we started, someone mentioned Dojo. So, Pete, enlighten us. How good is it?
I think it's still about 12 months away. I was just listening on one of the podcasts that it's going to be I think Elon tweeted that it's going to be an exaflop. So, yeah, it would probably rank among some of the fastest supercomputers in the world once it's finished in about 12 months. But the whole idea of it is to train, to speed up the training of the neural net. So it's one machine training another.
Yeah, apparently the world's fastest so far is 4.4 of a exaflop.
Correct.
But then apparently on a 16-bit floating point, it can sort of pump out roughly an exaflop, sorry. So yeah, it'll be basically one of the very fastest computers in the world, which is a awesome achievement.
But this one's going to be on FP32, so 32 memory.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. The other thing we had was something I've actually forgotten. We had a bit more follow-up information on the Tesla splitting, and we were talking about how they were going to do it. As it turns out, it is exactly what we thought. They're just simply going to effectively staple the additional 4 shares to any parcels that are exchanged after the 21st of August. And then they get actually issued on the Friday, the 28th or so, and then start trading on the 31st. So it was basically as we expected. And
they're just going to issue a 4-for-1 dividend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a Juno, I think they called it.
Yeah. Yes. And the interesting thing with share prices was carrying on from last week, we're talking about, Tesla's meteoric rise. The interesting thing is, and we also mentioned Apple being a $1 trillion company, or now it's $1.9 trillion US, was that if you had purchased, have a guess at how much money you would have if you had purchased $10,000 of Apple shares in a certain month in 2002. $10,000 only.
7 digits, wouldn't it? 7 figures.
You'd have $4.5 million from 10,000. Now Tesla, on the other hand, if you had purchased $10,000 worth at their IPO, they would now be worth 1.1 million. Which is
Harold, when you said that, Harold, you had your hand on your chest, which something? Or?
No.
We wish.
No, I didn't. No, I wish I did. Hindsight Harry says I did. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. But so Apple was surprising because as recently, inverted commas, as 18 years ago, they basically did a 450 bagger. They were basically $1 a share US in one part of 2002. And I think I last saw them at about $460, which is not a bad effort.
I guess the question is then, how much higher do we think that Tesla are going to go?
Well, my new target price is $1,000 after the split.
Okay, yep.
So
I've never had shares in Tesla, but I am waiting for the split, and then I might buy a few, but it won't be many. But yeah, who knows?
Well, they had a big night last night. I'm not sure, Jason, if you've got the pre-open share price up on one of your mini screens.
Yes, my mini me was looking at it earlier. Disappointingly, we're down a whole $15, but the Nasdaq is down a smidge as well. So
18.
don't stress just yet. It'll be all right.
1898. Oh no, that was the open. What's the pre?
1872. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know whether anyone else has got this. I feel almost a little bit uneasy in investing in Tesla. I know this might sound strange, but like I feel like one of the things when I'm talking about Tesla to people that have that are interested, I feel like I haven't got money in the game, so to speak. If and I think once I do, then that kind of I'm then talking up a stock that I own part of. I'm sure I'll get over that very quickly, but I just wonder whether anyone else had that feeling.
The thing is, you're not a short, so it's not like if you're a short, you feel compelled to always find the badness out of something or twist something in a bad way. Just because you're a long investor doesn't mean you're a blind fanboy per se, even if you are one.
I don't think I am, but
no, I don't think any of
Tesla
us
owners would say that.
Says Jason, pointing to himself. I mean,
I am blind. Yeah,
we're all sort of fanboys of one sort because we've put a lot of money into a car, which is never a great investment.
Some of us are wavering a bit though, Harold.
Some of us want a bloody supercharger network.
Yeah, we do.
But you've bought the product, Rich. So if that's your support for the time being, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
can I ask a question about cars for a moment?
Yes.
Please do.
Look, I noticed that there's a 350 kilowatt charger going in at Australind. Yes. And I believe there's another one. They're going to upgrade the RAC headquarters with 350 kilowatt charger. Can Teslas take that sort of volume of charge?
There's no current car on the market that can take that volume of charge, but certainly current Model 3 architecture can go quite a long way into that.
250, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you're at very low state of charge on a Model 3, you'll get close to 250 kilowatts out of one of those chargers. Yeah.
But not my old Model S.
No. Model
I think
S.
we might be 125. It's either 120 or 125. I'm not sure.
That depends. Supercharger, really.
Yeah, it depends on the pack size and a few other factors. But so the small packs sort of peak out about 110, and the bigger packs tend to sneak a little bit higher than that, just because they're higher voltage.
And a question for Harold in terms of any communications that you might have had with Tesla in Europe and what's happening on that scene, and also how can we order? All my orders to Tesla's shop in the US have been rejected with the local delivery company. So any joy at all?
We did make representations to Tesla Australia about the Model 3 key fob, which I'm not sure if everyone else is aware of. There's actually Tesla brought out after the controversy of the card key system and the Bluetooth phone setup. Tesla actually brought out a key fob for the Model 3 because obviously the reason why they brought out the Prox card in the first place was a cost-saving measure. They brought out an initial version, and they then updated it in, I think it was December last year, to be fully keyless entry, hands-free. And having heard Martin describe that he basically went to Tesla's US shop ordered the key, sent it to a freight forwarder, and then they actively cancelled the order. We made representations to Tesla Australia, asking them if and when that was available, and their answer at the moment is it's not, and they haven't yet given us any indication of when it may be available. Frustratingly, it's available in Hong Kong for, I think, from memory, about 1,200 Hong Kong dollars, and virtually every other country that you can think of that Tesla has representation in, including all of Europe, the UK, and other countries.
Could I buy one in Hong Kong?
Sorry?
Could I buy one in Hong Kong?
Yes. I was actually looking at doing that. There is a service centre. If you can look on Tesla's map, in fact, we've actually got that somewhere. Ironically, it might be simpler. They might be accommodating. If not, a couple of us have contacts in Hong Kong, so we might be able to get it picked up and then sent as secondary freight.
And it'll still work in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. All of those remotes are homologated worldwide. So I think the Model 3 one is Bluetooth based. I think so. That's 2.4 gig. I think the S and X ones are either 868 or 915 megahertz, and again, that's basically world homologated.
But then you'll have to actually program it to your specific car. Would that be able to be?
Yes, I believe that's actually quite simple to do. You can do that yourself under the user profiles or something like that in your car.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the instructions. Yeah, it's quite easy to do.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, sadly, at the moment, Tesla Australia haven't indicated if and when it's going to be available. But we have asked them nicely.
Did they indicate why they weren't getting them in?
No.
I haven't said why not. Just by the way, Martin, on your other point, after our email conversation, I asked around a few people over the East Coast, and other people have had success with Australia Post Shopmate doing forwarding from Tesla. Whether it was just the particular forwarder that you were using that they don't like, I don't know. But of course, it could also be something specifically to do with the fob and them not wanting to export them. But it does seem a bit odd. But other people have bought stuff from the US store and sent via AusPost Shopmate, and stuff has arrived. So
they actually sent me an email from the shop saying we will not supply this gear to freight forwarders. End of story.
Right. So it could be the item in question. Look, I'm sure we can rustle up someone in a country that does sell them to get some if we wanted to.
Yeah, it's just I've had a bit of a problem. I was driving on Maria's car today, and she'd been just in the car before me. It wouldn't recognise my phone. Didn't pick up the car, and the card slipped on the floor, black on black. I couldn't find it. I got into the car park, down on my hands and knees trying to find the card because they wouldn't let me start unless I put the card on the centre console, and it was just and then if it rains or, you want to get your boot open, and it's just, a fob is just so much far superior than these cards.
Martin, you're not alone.
I've said my piece.
No, you're not alone with that experience of misplacing your card in the car. That actually happened to the Targa 130 kilometre per hour, whatever you call it, winner, namely John Edwards Model 3. Where the card actually slipped, and they basically lost it, and the car was being driven without a key because it was still active. It was okay, but then they had to basically, open it and unlock it and start charging and stop charging via the phone app, which luckily there was a phone signal, and that was purely because that card was misplaced because it slid backwards on that console.
But you don't have to put the console on the card on the console all the time. Once you start the car, you can pull it, I guess, and then use it whenever you need it. It doesn't have to stay on the console. I tried it and it worked. So
Oh yeah, no, that's right. But
I don't
like
think I
just
ever
found
put it on
today,
the
every time I
console.
got into the car, I had to put the card on the console to start it.
Mm.
Anyway,
The terrible design, really pathetic.
Getting
I
to, sorry, just a moment. Getting back to the charger, the actual Tritium. This is the 350 kilowatt charger, and you can see that it can basically put out obviously 920 amps, which is for the higher battery voltage
Volts.
packs. But I guess the limiting thing is CCS. It can put out 500 amps, so that's basically about 200 kilowatts on our batteries, Tesla batteries currently. So I guess in answer to Martin's original question, that's about as much as that charger is going to put out, at least according to Tritium spec. So there you have it.
so you'll need a CHAdeMO to go on those.
No, not at all. It's CCS2.
CCS.
CHAdeMO is slower, and in fact, the Tesla CHAdeMO adapter is limited to 50 kilowatts.
Yeah, I just don't.
Oh yeah.
In fact, the CHAdeMO is only 200 amps, which is approximately 80 kilowatts for our packs, because our packs are roughly 400 volts, pretty much maximum.
Right, so that means I've got to change my fitting in the car to CCS2.
Oh yes. Oh, and there's a bit of good news too, is that Tesla has reduced the retrofit cost of the CCS for all older models, S's and X, down. It was $780, and it now has reduced to $480.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, actually thanks to that prod, because that was a bit of new news this last week, which is great news. So Martin, for that you'll get a little module fitted into adjacent to your charger, or well, adjacent to your inlet, and also the little physical adapter, which physically directs the DC pins of the CCS plug into your Type 2 socket.
Oh, one of those.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, that's it. And you get a nice presentation box. Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any downsides to doing it? I haven't even thought about doing it yet.
No, not at all. The main advantage is that you get effectively whatever speed you get at a supercharger, you will get out of a CCS2 as well.
And you don't have to lug around the heavy CHAdeMO adapter.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Albeit at the moment, you're wise to do so at RAC highway chargers until that issue is resolved, which is still being worked on. So hopefully once that is resolved, then you will no longer have to use your CHAdeMO, drag around your CHAdeMO adapter if you upgraded for $480.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And, and again, as Ken alluded to, if you come across any of the higher powered CCS chargers, a la the 150 or 350 kilowatts, you'll be able to enjoy, well, at least the same charge as you would a supercharger, which I guess in your case is the best part of 120 kilowatts or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But whereas with CHAdeMO,
I guess
it has
there aren't
potential
any
to be a
charges.
solid twice the speed of the CHAdeMO adapter.
Yeah.
Will
there aren't any
upgrading
charges yet where I'd want to go, but yeah.
Will upgrading the charger in the car make any difference?
you mean to add an extra charger, Martin?
Yeah.
No, because when you're charging from a DC charger, you're not using the onboard charger at all.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
yep.
Makes no difference.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just bypassed completely. It's got nothing to do with the charger per se.
Can I change the subject for a minute, Harold?
No.
Yes. It's great to see Anthony's up and about after his major operation on Monday.
Yes, g'day, Ant. Nice to see you. How are you feeling?
Unmute yourself.
Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Just.
Hi. Yeah, I just thought I had a bit of time on my hands, and I'd listen in. I actually didn't realize the video was on.
Nice to see you, Ant.
It's amazing. It's amazing what'll drive you to joining a random Zoom. You know.
Well, I had to have half of my my brain removed in order to become Australian.
And it's probably good to see that you're almost as intelligent now as you were then.
Yeah, it's a step up from being South African.
I thought you were going to say you had to have half your brain removed to participate in a Tesla conversation. You know.
The unfortunate thing I just found out, unfortunately, is that the Department of Transport bans you from driving for 6 months if your skull is opened up, and so I will not be driving for 6 months.
Damn it.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a
Christina
bummer. I can't
Costigan,
drive for 6 months.
And if you want some moral support, Christina Costigan's just having the same thing. She just sold her car to her daughter. So, yeah, feel for you, buddy. So, but on the flip side, you're up and awake.
Yeah. And if you Uber drive, in other words, if you do anything commercial, it's 12 months.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, sorry to interrupt there.
No, not at all.
Not at all. It's good to have you along.
Great to see you, and yeah, welcome. You're welcome anytime, every time.
Apparently, I'm going home on Friday. It was highly successful, and
excellent.
They've removed the tumor. I look a bit tired because I had a long day, but I was actually quite up and about and doing stuff today, and so yeah, the neurosurgeon was quite pleased with my progress.
Good news.
Excellent news.
Yeah.
I got my smile still. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, don't give that up, Ant. Shit. Let me have a marshmallow and a cider for you to make you feel better.
Thanks, guys.
Did you see the timing that the government waited for you to go under the knife before they announced the hydrogen?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's a good thing that I wasn't. A good thing that I wasn't reacting to it because, I mean, what is it? What did they put into it? Like tens of millions of dollars. They could have put it in charging.
Yeah, they'll get one refueling point. You know.
Somewhere north.
Yeah, it's in the northern suburbs somewhere. It's just bizarre.
Bill Johnston was just on the 7:30 report then talking about virtual power plants. So that's yeah. I didn't catch the full story because I'm multitasking, but.
Okay. I've got satellite TV here in the hospital, so.
And good internet by the look of it.
Yeah. It's Wi-Fi. St. John, I'm paying through my nose to be here, so might as well.
Looks like you paid through your head, mate.
It's
I
actually
was going to say is through the nose. Isn't that how the Egyptians used to pull the brains out of the mummy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You've done
better than some other methods, more primitive.
In this case, they were a bit more efficient. They opened up the side, about a hole about that big on the side of the head, and fiddled around and removed the tumor. And now there's just a great big hole there.
Cool. Well, it's great to hear that you are recuperating.
Have you spoken to Muskie to see if he can put something in the hole? Something special.
That's right. He's looking for Neuralink people, isn't he?
Yeah, he can put one of Martin's car keys in his.
Didn't they put a hinge?
Where did I put that key again?
Did they not put a hinge on there, Ant? Just put a hinge and a little lock, and you can just open it up and just.
Oh, so the nurses have just delivered my favorite drink. That's to get the bowels moving.
Oh, awesome!
No shit.
Yeah, no show.
Hey, wiggle it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Thanks, guys. You carry on Tesla, and I'll.
Yeah, no worries. Well, feel free just to lurk if you like, or whatever you can. Yeah, whatever.
And put the video back on for the sponge bath. No, don't. You're not that old yet.
Laugh too much, it hurts.
Yeah. Take care, Ant. It's good to see you.
See you, mate.
See you.
All right. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Cheers.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Sorry, yes. Who was that?
Nigel.
Oh, Nigel. Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Just something I noticed today for the very first time, driving on autopilot down Ennis Avenue, dual carriageway, coming up to some traffic lights, the little thing pops up and says, stopping for traffic lights in 200 metres. I got to about 150, 100, and I hit the stop because they were green. And as I approached the lights, the car in front was accelerating to get through. They went amber. My car said, stopping for traffic lights in 50 metres, and then turned them amber, and then red, and the line went red, and it stopped, even though I previously said it's all clear to go through. And I was quite impressed with that. Something I'm impressed with for a change in autopilot.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just got MCU1 and shitty old hardware 2.
Did it stop very hard through the amber, or was it an appropriate level of stopping? Like, would you have stopped ordinarily?
It was appropriate level of stopping. I hit the button to say keep going at just more than 100 metres away, and it changed when I was probably about 70, 75, and then it just slowed down and broke and stopped. Wow. There was no cars in front of me at all.
That's cool.
And it still stopped in time for the red light.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Yeah, it's pretty good. Even though you click green and the lights change red before you come to it, it just comes to a stop. So
is that a new software version that you just got, Nigel or Ashley?
I'm still running on 26 or 28, whatever it is. I haven't got.
Yeah, the last one. Yeah, the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Because there's supposed to be some new changes. Oh no, so that was perhaps John. Your X, has it got adaptive suspension?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
Ah, cool. So you can look forward to some tweaks to that. Apparently, some new features.
That's correct. Yes. Yep.
Which should be quite interesting. I think it was to do with you can specify hardness ratings or something in different areas. You can sort of preset that and remember what it was set to last time.
It doesn't remember anything else, so maybe it will this time.
Well, you never know.
I saw that was the information on the upgrade, but I didn't chase it through.
Ah, cool.
But I did notice that the mapping is improved dramatically.
How so?
Well, I was up in the northern suburbs and had to get down to a gym in Forestfield. I've put in the name of it, Hartfield Park, and it actually, the address in the website is Hale Road. But this took me down to the roundabout, took me off Hale Road, 200 metres up the road, turned me left in front of the building and stopped me outside the entrance.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
So, and the traffic, what would you call it? Observations, it is really quite good.
Sorry, one thing I've noticed is that for navigation, previously the car had used its onboard map as the route reference for navigation, but now it actually seems to use Google as an online resource. And the reason why I know that is because, and I've mentioned this before, is Manning Road got a new southbound freeway on-ramp, and that was actually opened after Tesla updated the maps.
Oh, really?
24th week of this year, and yet when you navigate south, it actually takes you down that new on-ramp. So clearly, it's getting that information hot off the internet through presumably Google servers now. Whereas before
it really depends on how the authorities put the information up, because it's got to come from main roads.
Yes, indeed. But the thing is, Tesla only updates their maps once a year at the moment. So traditionally, it wouldn't have navigated you on that new ramp because it didn't know about it. It's not in its map. And in fact, in the binnacle, it displays that on-ramp incorrectly because it's just not there. But on navigating, it actually does show it as that route.
Maybe that's why it's improved dramatically then.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So clearly they've negotiated with Google to get live, not just live traffic, but live mapping effectively.
And also too, the the option of it having changing your route if you've got more than a couple of minutes delay.
Yes.
It's working.
One great pro tip is I think the default is 5 minutes, or maybe possibly or 5 or 10, but you can take it all the way down to 2 or 1, I think.
I put mine in 2, and it does change.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great idea, actually.
No, it's nearly as good as my TomTom then.
Well, your TomTom didn't have 4 wheels.
I realise it. Unless the box got cobwebs on it now. But...
Yeah, I've got mine set to 10, and it's done it once coming down the freeway. It says go off here and move off. And then when I got past it, I heard on the radio, the freeway's at a standstill. So I thought, well, that was all right. But I've got it set to 10. I don't know. Does it make a huge difference saving 5 minutes or 10 minutes on the journey?
Well, it depends. If you're holding your breath underwater, that's a long time.
Yeah, well, being retired, I don't think it matters too much for me.
Cool. And you're saying the visualization's a bit better, John?
No, actually, excuse me, what it does need to do is you need to be able to increase the font size.
Yes.
When you get my age, a pair of glasses is a very different thing, and so I can't read the dashboard and I can't read the screen, and so I lean forward about 3 feet so I can sort of see what numbers are on it.
Good point. And that would only be a thumb wheel change or something like standard and large font. That would be great.
Oh yes, it wouldn't be an issue at all. Yeah. I've got a son who's in IT, very high in IT, and he gets in it and he says, "Oh, these guys are dickheads." He said, "They don't know what they're doing." So, very interesting. He said, "You can just do this and this and this, and it'll all be fixed." And I said, "How about having a guy cracking it?" And he says, "Oh, I'm going to have a bit of spare time, a week or so." He said, "I might come and do that." So, be interesting.
Yes, you basically got to get into the MCU first and adjust all the settings.
I can imagine it can be done quite easily, but I think some guys in the States are actually doing it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Well, they do everything. They crack everything over there. So.
Cool.
Tesla has a program for people to do that and reward them if they find vulnerabilities.
Well, that's how some of the cyber...
Yeah, they actively do it. And it's just a matter of priorities, John. So, without being, you may represent some small percentage of the user group, and at the moment they're busy doing other things. That's, yeah, so it's unfortunate, but I'm sure it's easy and it probably will come. But
well, we're so they don't really count us into
but write them an email. Yeah, and it's like the polies, we're just a group of like-minded whingers, so ping one off to Tesla.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Jason, it's funny you say that, because last week Pete was speaking about inadvertently putting his car in reverse and there being no effective warning. We actually have an email that goes to the US, which is effectively intended for us to ventilate ideas, and they can be anything at all. So, John, that's something that we can write up and send up the line of basically having a font adjustment. And Pete, when you've done yours and give it to me, I'll send that up as well.
Will do, Harold. Just haven't had time this week, but I'll get it done.
That's cool. We've all we've all been busy, no doubt, myself included.
How are you going with those tails?
Well, that was part of being busy. And I was getting to work today, but then I just had zero chance. I had a meeting that I had to attend, so I just couldn't get to work today. But I'll be doing my best to do it tomorrow, John. Yeah, today we just couldn't do it.
All right, I'll plug in the 10 amp again tomorrow night.
Oh, so you're going tomorrow? Oh, right, okay, yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Harold. No pressure.
It's cool. We were doing good work today, so.
As long as you're earning money, it's all.
It's not always about the money.
Harold, did you get my email?
Oh,
what did you get?
No, I didn't, Nigel. Let me have a little look at it now, offline.
Actually,
while you talk amongst
over the weekend.
Oh, weekend, that's fine. If you want to borrow something, John, sorry, Nigel, it's cool. I actually just got, you were looking for a 32 amp?
32 amp tail, or
we got the UMC just came back, so you can use that. So that's cool. That'll get you 11 kilowatts, which is even better than the tail.
I just needed time to. I said in the email, when can I come pick it up? Just give me a time.
Well, I can tell you now that I'm at my place all night tonight.
So am I.
But yeah, any time, Nigel, just give me a call. I'll be around tomorrow or whatever, or Friday or Saturday morning, because that's cool.
Yeah, probably Friday.
Yeah, no worries. That's cool. Any other news or anything that you can't think of that we haven't covered?
Has anyone heard about the new 4D chip which Tesla's developing with Broadcom in China? I hope we are not going to be forced to upgrade with the chip, because we thought full self-driving will be with the current version of the hardware which Tesla's rolling out with all the Model 3s and stuff like that. But
sounds like it's just going to be capable of more instructions but lower power, probably more redundancy. So yeah, I wouldn't think that they'd require a replacement at all.
Okay,
that's right. Elon actually mentioned it at Autonomy Day last year. That when he was explaining the Hardware 3 chip, he'd already said that that took 2 years to go from start of development to prototypes. And he had explained that they were already 1 year into the next generation, effectively Hardware 4 chip. Because from memory, I recall that he was basically describing, was it Andrej Karpathy or whoever it was describing that as their first chip, they had to sort of guesstimate what they thought it needed to have in different ratios, whether it was 2-port memory and GPUs and other things. And they weren't really going to know what was the ideal mix until they actually tried it. And they actually said that they did get it fairly right, but that they'd learned from it, and their version 4 chip, well, Hardware 4 chip, would be even better. And I forget what the metric was. It was, I don't know whether it was several times better or something of that order. Bearing in mind that I think the Hardware 3 chip was it 100 times better than the NVIDIA?
I don't know, but we need to change the subject or spice it up, because Ant keeps drifting off there.
That's all right, because in the future, when people watch this because they're suffering badly from insomnia,
yeah,
they'll be able to work out that if it works on Ant, it must work on them too.
Yeah, mouth breathing Ant. We might, buddy.
We'll keep him doing that.
I'm listening to you. I can't hear Anthony speaking Australian yet.
No.
Needs a beer.
Oh, yeah, that'll
Harold,
help.
I've got a question in relation to a hardy perennial problem with the older drivers, not only in age but in car age as well. I read in a US website yesterday where when the 2012-15 models are having their screens replaced, that they're no longer replacing the screen, they're actually only replacing a component of the system. And I think the cost has come down to something like $450. Have you heard anything about that one?
Yes, there's a couple of prices. We've had it confirmed that Tesla are have been refurbishing MCUs in their entirety, and that was for $1,800 and something Australian. That was quoted by Tesla. But then the next option, which is something that actually a lot of clubs, including ours, advocated for, was for Tesla to simply replace the daughter board, which contained the Tegra chip and the actual eMMC. And I think the indications are that is approximately a $500, I think that was a US dollar fix. So I guess you got to adjust that for Australian dollars, which is, I guess that's what, $700.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, it's still questionable. I mean, that's a move in the right direction. You know, previously it was the whole MCU for approximately $3,000. Then they've moved to a refurbished MCU for roughly $1,800, and perhaps now they're looking at a daughter board for, let's call it $700-800. Of course, it's arguable as to whether anyone should be paying for that at all, but that's another question. But definitely they're in the right trajectory. So rather than having to buy a whole new TV, you know, you can basically just buy the little daughter board.
Component, yeah, whatever it is, yeah.
And one thing I am aware of is they have they're out of stock of MCU, so there are no new stock items. I think, and that's basically in the whole world. So they've basically stopped making them.
Yeah, they were forced to do the refurb primarily because they had no more stock.
Yeah.
And effectively, the refurb was just replacing that board, but they were still shipping that as complete units. But now they've come and seen the sense of the wrong way around, the opposite of what I mean, the nonsense of their ways. And given that the only thing that actually fails is on as you rightly say, the processor daughter board, they're just replacing the processor daughter board because it saves them from logistics as well. Because they don't have to ship around, 15-inch screens and all the rest of it. They just ship around a board that's literally this big.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great development. Obviously, for many of us who are perfectly willing to upgrade to MCU2, primarily because of its killer features, we all hope that will happen before our MCUs die. So that we can avoid having to force the issue of what do we do in the meantime. But
did we get a price for what that's going to be? A confirmed price?
No, it's $2,500 US, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because it's actually it's not just changing out. Well, I'm pretty sure even as of today, it's still not just changing out the MCU. You also have to change the binnacle, because the way the two are interlinked is different. Previously, there were two separate computers, which is why the old MCU ones, you would reset the MCU with your thumb wheels and reset the binnacle with the two top buttons on your steering wheel. The new MCU2s, you just press the scroll wheels, as John would know, and the whole lot resets all at once because they're basically interlinked.
Yep, there's quite a lot of work to do the infotainment upgrade. There's some loom changes to support that as well. But that's right. The binnacle, if you want to call it that, the driver display is just a daughter display of the MCU now, rather than being its own computer. So there's quite a few changes, and the other slightly weird one is because there's no tuner on the MCU2, you lose your radio as part of the process, because MCU2 uses an external TCP/IP streaming radio, which is buried way down near the firewall. And as part of the process, they basically decided it was all too hard, so they don't actually install that component. So you end up without a radio if you do the retrofit. But that's a price I'm prepared to pay as well. It'll make a huge difference.
There goes ABC 720.
No. Actually, no, that's not true. What Ken meant to say was you lose the radio tuner.
Yeah.
You can still do streaming radio.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So the ABC, you can, which is exactly how I listen to it, Martin, is I just stream it because I don't have an AM. On the Model X's, don't have an AM tuner. They only have an FM tuner. Yep. So I just stream it. But it does mean that it will kill off any prospect of doing watching outdoor cinema, because they use an FM transmitter, and even if you got a Bluetooth adapter, you'd be out of sync, so that would be painful.
You just got to bring your boombox with you to the drive.
Indeed.
Is there any in terms of autopilot 2, has it caught up with version 1 yet?
Yes, it exceeds it. So you've got Navigator and Autopilot, which version 1 can't do.
Yeah.
You've got lane. When you change lanes and there's a car next to you, you get a warning that there's a car to the side.
Blind spot detection.
Blind spot. Sorry, yes. Yep.
And a few
Yep.
other things.
So it's visually acute better. It's visually better. Is it still using cameras and all that sort of stuff rather than GPS?
Yeah, it uses cameras, but it's got more of them, and it's got slightly better ultrasonic sensors than version 1. The general consensus is that AP2 hardware 2 overtook hardware 1 a little while back, probably around about version 9.1. But of course, there's people who'll always suggest that, of course, that's not true.
Absolutely.
But then, of course, there's people that think that vinyl is still better than CDs. You know, so
that's
yeah,
true as well.
I'm thinking Catwoman there, Ken. Absolutely, brother. Yeah. Hey, getting back to what you asked, Rich, it's $3,510 plus applicable tax in Canada for the infotainment upgrade. And we're about parity, so a little bit more. Yeah.
I think a long time ago I predicted $3,750 just internally, but hey, we'll see where that falls. And there was talk too that if your I think this is in the States, if your MCU1 failed under warranty, which doesn't apply to many of us in the room, you would then get a discount on the upgrade to MCU2.
Sorry, Harold, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, it's not so much a matter of a discount. It's just that you wouldn't pay the labour.
Yes,
because as part of the warranty replacement for your MCU1, they would warrant the labour for that replacement. If you opt to upgrade at the same time, then they waive the labour cost. Is basically how that plays out.
Is there still a legal action in the US about this going?
There is an National Highway and NHTSA investigation.
I haven't heard anything about it.
But that's ongoing, and it could take months, if not longer.
Yeah.
And the main hook on that one was the principle that because the MCU holds the reversing camera or is the reversing camera screen, the lack of said reversing camera, which is a standard feature of the car, reduces its safety and therefore ought to be addressed as a concern. Which, to be honest, is quite a clever way of bringing that issue or giving it some prominence. So yeah, it's still ongoing.
I think it's pretty. It's pretty out of order, to be honest. I think of Tesla to go, well, we made a design error and you've got to pay for it.
Yeah, and look, Australian consumer law totally agrees with you. And Section 54 of the Australian consumer law basically states that, you know, anything you buy has to have a certain life span that's commensurate with a reasonable person's expectation, taking into account the value of the product and what it does and what it is.
So do we have anything to stand on from that side of things?
Yes, let's just play this scenario. Let's just say that your MCU blows up and you were invited to pay for it, and then the first suggestion that we can say as a club is that if you're not happy with anything that happens at service, you should ask for West Australia's service manager, who now is James Banks, because that's been announced. He's now the official state service manager. You ask that the West Australian service manager escalates it to his manager. So you say you're unhappy with whatever spare part that was exchanged and they charge you for it, or any matter whatsoever, you ask for that to be escalated to his manager. Then let's just say that escalation is unsuccessful. Then the next recourse you have is basically to take an action in the magistrate's court, because presumably the value of that action would be less than $10,000. So it would be a minor claim. You use what's called a Form 4 to initiate that action. It's a lawyer-free zone, so there'll be no onerous legal costs. And you ventilate that matter towards to a magistrate in your area, because you're entitled to have it ventilated in your area, not Tesla's. And you put your argument to the magistrate under Section 54 of the Australian Consumer Law. And frustratingly, let's just say you win, which I dare say if it was an MCU issue, you'd probably have a good chance. None of those judgments are actually published. So you can't search prior judgments, unlike the district court and the Supreme Court. So you can't sort of get a gauge of what's come before. But that's what you do. And yeah. So obviously that sort of bar, that there's a bit of a high bar you have to sort of cross as far as going to the hassle of going to a magistrate's court. But it actually isn't as hard as it sounds.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. But the first step, and we've been told this as a club, is the first step is if you're unhappy with any service activity or anything that's happened during with your service or a service item, is definitely ask for that to be escalated. And then James will happily do that. So,
and without treading over any NDAs or anything, we could suggest that Tesla are not unsympathetic to that within Australia for the MCU.
And I'm sure they're happy to state that it's appropriate for a customer that is not happy with any aspect of any service they've received from Tesla to ask for that to be escalated. So,
I'd have to say that the service from Tesla has been absolutely fantastic the last few months. I had my handle on my door. My sister pulled it out when it was actually retracting and snapped it. Came out 2 or 3 days later, fixed it, bang, on the way.
Cool.
Don't shout at me, but I'm putting a roof rack on Friday morning. I agreed to the price and so forth today, and they're coming out on Friday to fit it. And the cost to come out to my house, put it in, was an extra $70 or something. Crazy cheap.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I can confirm I had a charger replaced in my car under warranty, and yeah, it was great. They did it quite quickly. In fact, I actually was verbally told it was booked in on a Thursday, but it transpires that it was actually ended up being booked in for the day later. But I looked at my phone, and then my phone said it was going to be the Thursday, so I dropped the car off, and they said at about lunchtime, "What's the car doing here?" And I said, "Well, I thought we had a service appointment." And anyway, they basically did it that afternoon, and I managed to collect the car at about 4:30, and it was done. So yeah, great service, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really changed since when it was just James. The
place is now crowded.
Yeah.
It's crowded.
And having the service tech go around probably is making a huge difference.
The mobile, yes, mobile.
Yeah.
That's Taylor, I think. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah.
Adam and someone else here. I'll tell you what they could improve though. The actual communication from some of the salespeople. I mean, I've got leads, people I speak to that are interested, don't want to get online and prefer to speak to a human being. I think these guys have really got to get a bit more visual, maybe attend some of our functions. They just need to get their faces in front of people.
When you say sales, Martin, you mean new car sales?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on our website, there is a form, an online form that they can fill out, put in their mobile number, and Harry Anderson will get back to them. He was on leave until yesterday, actually.
Yeah, he's been away for a couple of weeks, I think, but he's back now.
He's normally pretty good.
Not mean just filling out forms. I mean actually physically turning up to some of the functions for coffee or whatever. I wouldn't know these guys if I fell over them.
Harry's good. Actually,
Harry has expressed a desire to come along to a couple of our things, and you've reminded me that I'll nag him again for in 2 weeks' time. We're meeting, instead of doing this, we're meeting at the Camfield. Camfield. I always get the M and the N the wrong way around. I might drop Harry an email and see if he wants to come out. If we offer to buy him a beer or 3.
Harry was with me and Annie and a couple of others at the Mineral Resources thing. So he does.
Yep.
Yeah,
he does come to things, but it'd be nice to get him along to some social stuff.
What was the Mineral Resources thing?
It was a mineral resources conference. For people within mining. It was in a swanky hotel in Perth, and can't remember how it all came about, but yeah, a few of us Tesla owners were asked if we go and take it in turns in windows throughout the day to show our cars off and sit there and ask questions, answer questions.
So it was a mineral resource. It wasn't Mineral Resources, the mining company's function.
Yes, it's Clean Energy Mineral Resources.
Ah, right, not the listed company. Right.
Yes, it was Clean Energy.
Oh,
we've done that a few years now.
Right.
Yeah. Good. So RAC normally give a speech about, air pollution and all that sort of stuff, and then, get in their car and drive off in their petrol car. But it's a pretty good event. Yeah, they just basically trying to get people to invest in lithium mines and copper mines and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Good.
We're talking about events. We do have that. Is anyone interested in the what's the one that's on tomorrow afternoon? There's a Zoom with the head of the Norwegian EV Association and oh, come on, brain, it'll come to me. If anyone wants the invite link, I can send it through. It's via Zoom. That one's quite nice. I'll try and find it so I'm not just gibbering.
When was it sent? When was it sent, Ken? It was only.
It was on Twitter, and it wasn't all that well publicized, but it got retweeted recently by a couple of people. So I will find it. Hang on. I think I retweeted it from the Tokwa account earlier today.
Yes, that's what it will be.
It's organised by the Australia Institute, so a bunch of crazy lefties. I'll just get a copy to the tweet. But yeah, Christina Bu, who's the Norwegian Electric Vehicle Association, is in town, so she's being interviewed by Giles Parkinson tomorrow for a little webinar. It could be quite interesting. If anyone's got some time tomorrow afternoon, yep, that's the one.
So all you got to do is anyone interested can just look on our Twitter account, and you just click on the Zoom registration link.
So yeah, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, so 2 p.m. WA. If anyone's interested in that. And Harold, were we going to, is the EV thing at Crown, are we talking about that, that Florian's organising? Are we looking for
let's talk about that. I believe that's the 6th or 8th of September. I'll just try and bring up an email.
It's the 9th, Wednesday, the 9th of September, World EV Day.
Oh, sorry, Wednesday, right, the 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to send an email out. It might be the simplest way to get some more details.
Yeah.
I believe lunch is $51 at the Atrium restaurant.
At Crown Towers. They're doing a kind of a long table lunch for EV owners to all kind of, wave the flag. and so that could be quite interesting. Because from Australian locations, WA is in the unique position of actually being able to host something where a lot of the other state capitals can't, unfortunately.
Even though we just got an F.
Yeah.
That's correct. The Northern Territory and
I don't know what they're playing at, really.
So what was that F for? I'm in the dark.
I followed when we went across Australia. The year Rob teed us up with Tim Storer, that senator from South Australia. So he tweeted out it was a bit of a state of the nation, I think, from the EV Council. And WA, the Territory, and the federal government, we have got an F. South Australia was feeling hard done by because they got a D because they could try a bit harder on their electric car. You know, sort of like the 5% limit. And
yeah, but wow, they've got a big battery. That's kind of a good effort, I would have thought.
Yeah, but it's not on wheels again, Harold.
Yeah.
So
maybe they should have installed a whole lot of Nissan Leafs, if that's a thing.
Give South Australia they did install some charging infrastructure around the place. There's some really good stuff in the centre of Adelaide and around.
Like a supercharger.
Well, even before the superchargers went in, they had some DC charging in the centre.
Same site.
Yeah, that's quite nice. If only Western Australia, instead of buying a hydrogen fuel point, would do some of that. But I don't think anyone in this particular shooting gallery, disagrees on that one. It's just, I don't know how you get them to listen.
Apparently, there's an annual State of Electric Vehicles report, which was released today, which for the first time graded Australian governments, and that was based on the fact that there's now enough global data to sort of rank us, and irrespective.
And we suck. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah, we'd be on the bottom. It doesn't matter how big the data pool was; it'd still be down there. So.
Well, I've been arguing that we should have got that F was being too kind. We should have.
Yes, I read that.
I agree.
That's right. We should have got a zero start.
Was the F perhaps a suffix of a prefix? Sorry, a prefix of what it really was.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Gents, I got to do a runner. Lovely to see you again, but it is all gents again. But.
Well, we got to try and fix that. All right, Ken, good to see you.
See you, Ken.
Take care. Cheers. See you.
Later, Ken.
See you again.
I was going to say, do you remember, Harold, when we had the car show at Mandurah last year and they brought the hydrogen fuel cell car along on the truck?
Yeah. And wasn't that also the day that Synergy's fantastic trailer ended up on its side? Which
they rolled it on the Roe Highway.
Oh,
which I believe is a fairly straight piece of road generally, being a highway.
And the worst thing was they actually hired a company to transport it from place to place so it would be done safely. They rode off a Hilux Ute as well.
Yes, indeed. But that hydrogen car was interesting. Well, it wasn't interesting. It was just expensive. Frustratingly. Have Hyundai done a hydrogen car as well?
Yes.
Yes. So for instance, I know that you can buy a Kona, petrol Kona for 25k. You can buy an electric Kona for 65k. You can buy a hydrogen Ioniq or something similar for, is it 90,000 or more?
Yeah, but where are you going to charge it? Where are you going to fuel it up?
Well, exactly. Well, there's going to be one station now, isn't there?
Well, apparently the only safe way to actually have those stations operate is if they actually electrolyse on site, so that you limit the volume of hydrogen actually stored. Because apparently hydrogen causes metal to fatigue, or it basically seeps into the
tiny molecule, gets out of everything.
Gets out, yes, and it weakens the tanks, and they just basically rupture. So the only way to do it is to crack the water on site, which of course is horrendously inefficient.
Well, isn't that what they dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
No, that's not true. No, that is fake news.
Had hydrogen in it, but
No, it actually didn't. There was no hydrogen in
No,
those.
no. The first one was uranium. The second one was plutonium.
Yes.
They didn't get into hydrogen until a bit later, and then they discovered that there is no limit to the yield of a hydrogen bomb. You just need more tritium, and the more tritium you can pack next to a conventional nuclear weapon, the bigger this can be without limit. Whereas a uranium bomb you can't make very large at all, and plutonium you've got a similar limit because you can't drive in the wedges hard enough, fast enough before it pre-ignites and blows it apart anyway. But a hydrogen bomb you can make trillion, teratons if you wanted to.
What have you been Googling, Harold? They watch you.
Isn't physics great?
Yeah, if you can remember it. He's a lot younger than me.
Yeah. What have you got,
But I actually went to a hydrogen filling station in Germany, and it's funny because it was a station that was sort of the size of like a standard petrol station. In other words, including all the forecourt and the whole lot. And it was just like this big rectangle, like a shoebox, with all the electrolyzers and various tanks and storage, and it had one single Bowser. Right next to it was probably an 8-stall supercharger that was probably a quarter of the footprint, that was full of cars charging continually. And the hydrogen too was several euros a kilo, which is pretty expensive.
I just wonder when this is all gonna shift, because it just has to. Like at some point, they're gonna wake up. I mean,
perhaps for haul packs, maybe it's a quick method of getting an alternative fuel, I guess, and maybe for trains, locos.
But as far as our state's concerned, they're awake. It's just the politics of oil and gas in this state.
I know.
So, the politicians at that level, they're not stupid. And that meeting I had with Bill Johnson, he's over it. He knows his topic and his subject matter. It's just they're playing the game.
What was this meeting with Bill Johnson? Because I often include him in tweets, but so
apparently he tweets, but he doesn't monitor his Twitter. But I'm in his local electorate, so he's coming back to us. So he sent us stuff in the mail, so I felt compelled to waste a bit of his time as well. So I took a month or so to have a chat. But he's the energy minister as well, which is handy. So it just seemed
what was he saying?
What I got out of 45 minutes was the grid probably needs a bit more time to prepare itself for the new energy market. ACCA batteries at the extremities and mass car chargings in the southwest on long weekends and things like that. And cynically, I believe, they're just buying some time. They'll probably let hydrogen run its course and it's going to die. We know that. They're just going to say, we tried, it didn't work. Maybe for some long haul trucks, but of course, we're at the long haul hydrogen trucks. Nicola's trying really hard. So there's just...
Jace, that comment, as far as the grid needing more time to adjust, I'd completely disagree with that. I think it's the exact opposite. I mean, the network operators are already trialing governing down solar systems at times of too much PV penetration. The grid is crying out for storage. There's two types of storage. You can have battery storage, or you can have, EV storage. The benefit of EV storage is, it creates more jobs. CO2, air pollution, regional tourism. There's all these additional benefits.
I agree, Pete, but one example he gave was a long weekend when everybody in their EVs heads to the southwest and they all want to charge overnight. There's no batteries, there's no sun shining. We sat there for 45 minutes, he had a notepad, he didn't write down any notes. He understands the VPP, he reckons WA is a world leader in grid diversity and new technology, but we're a big state with a vast expansive grid, but a small population. And as you know, there's some issues there, but it just seems the hydrogen thing, they're compelled to try because, you know, the Woodsides and the Chevrons and have some weight.
Okay, so we've got to wait for that whole nonsense to play itself out before they'll then go, right, we're going to do EVs.
Well, I was telling Richard that thing that a media release I put up the other day, you know, they're bringing forward their hydrogen strategy 10 years, apparently. Why? They either want to support it or they want to see it die.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know. There's different angles to all this stuff, and you and I will die wondering what they are.
Well, the other thing,
that argument about everyone charging, you know, before the long weekend. That's
not before. No, when they head down south and they're all having a holiday down south, and they plug into their Airbnb or their own holiday home, and it's night time. And he said we'll have to bring generators down because, you know, like Denmark had brownouts forever and a day until they put wind turbines in, and they couldn't handle just people going for a holiday at Easter without their EVs.
Yeah, but surely it'd be no worse than people putting their air conditioning units on.
Exactly. And the thing is, EVs can be dispatched easily. I mean, you can easily do something like this, you know, where you're basically soaking up the solar, you know, easily. And that's all that you have to do. So,
what's your take on it, though, Pete? Like,
well, it just seems to me like he's picked this one niche, you know, one specific situation. What about all the other 364 days of the year?
The grid doesn't, Pete, sorry, but the grid doesn't work that way, and they catastrophize for the worst case scenario, and that's what brings the place to its knees. And they're not prepared to wear that. You know, politically it's one thing, but to have the power brown out or shut down or whatever, these things cascade, and, you know, it's just a risk they can't take.
Surely having battery storage would help that.
It does, but right now, if we had 5% EVs and all those people that, you know, the population empties to the southwest, and they all want to charge at night time with the grid the way it is, you know, there's potential because you're localizing it. It becomes a problem at the moment.
Yeah, we've got to have an answer for this.
Yeah, we do. It's called time, and like you said, it's batteries. And the more, you know, let's make home solar. Let's get rid of the STCs for panels and give everyone a subsidy for a battery. So when you put a new solar system in, you have to have a battery.
Well, that should be the mandate. Any additional solar must be accompanied by battery storage, because that will then reduce the chances that they're going to throttle back all the inverters, which they already can do. And that's obviously something you don't want, really, because it makes everything inefficient.
That's us building out their infrastructure. You know, we're subsidising the government in effect because we're going to pay a portion of that ourselves. So,
well, the pernicious thing is that the generators and retailers, a la Synergy, who is both, they have both hats on, they're in a conflict of interest, because it'll be in their interest to shut down our inverters while they crank up their thermal power generators.
Good point.
That's right.
And there's a slight conflict of interest there.
Can I just step in here? In the UK, they're solving this problem by having on-site batteries. Now, it does a couple of things. Is they don't have to put so much infrastructure to the site, because they trickle feed the batteries with low-cost electricity when there's too much wind power, right? Then when there's extra cars charging at that site, they charge off the batteries mostly, because so it's basically like having a fuel tank on site, which is getting just drip fed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, like a water tank from a windmill. Yeah, and that place in Scotland I referred to in some of my tweets, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah, so the same thing can be done down south, where the batteries are charged up with low-cost electricity at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's very windy, but everyone's in bed.
Yes, and but we know the solution. It has to be agreed upon by the politicians. They have to support it with the policy, and then that's where they're going with these community batteries. In essence, that's the same thing, but we haven't got VPPs at the household level yet, but that's what a community battery is. But they just need to do it faster.
Well, I just think this one event of everyone driving down south, because, I mean, see the grid, we can fire up a lot of generation, and during nighttime is usually low demand. So okay, so this is going to be one day that it's going to be high demand at nighttime. Well, we can dispatch a lot of, there's Kwinana, which can come on stream in about 5 minutes. So if we know it's going to happen, we can plan for it.
There's no doubt the grid has the capacity. That's what the spinning reserve's about, and we pay a lot of money as taxpayers for that to sit there and do nothing. But then getting back to the example of Denmark, that was half overdoing, whatever it is, it's part of the grid, but because it's at an extremity of the grid, when people went there for a long weekend or Easter, they would have brownouts because of voltage sag and high demand. So
so it's still on the Swiss network, but there is
absolutely
a big
and then they put 2 wind turbines out at the heads, which then there was a massive years of grief, and solved the problem, but not everybody's happy with the solutions all the time. So, and it took time.
But you just need a market for this, and if there was a trigger, pricing trigger, someone who's entrepreneurial could, if it made, that's how capacity charges work. So a lot of these peaking power stations, they might turn on for half an hour a year, but they still make a return on their investment because they get paid in capacity charges. So they just...
I used to, when I was at Wagerot, Pete, there's 285 megawatt gas turbines that we used to operate and maintain for Alinta. They got fired up once or twice a year. They were $400 million machines.
Yep.
And we'd stress test them in summer, and they're basically still sitting there 12 years later, and they've got not a lot of hours, and that's what we pay for as taxpayers. But again, you're right, price points, but policy, and it's regulation, and it takes time.
Well, it's not taxpayers that pay for it; it's whoever uses power, because through capacity charges. So the tariff is made up of about 6 or 8 components. One of those, and this can be a very large component, it can actually be as big as your consumption, is what's called the IRCR charge, as you probably know. In the IRCR, what's called? Reserve capacity requirement. So that's a fee that every commercial meter pays. It's based on 12. It's calculated over 12 half-hourly periods over the year, and you basically take a mean of those 12 half-hourly periods. But basically, it's a charge that applies to you, which is calculated according to how much power you use during when the grid is at its peak. And according to that, they work out how much the grid has to keep aside, how much capacity the grid has to keep aside for you. And then you pay a fee according to that. So,
as you know, I work at Kwinana at the refinery there, so we're part of the grid, and most of the time we're importing power. And in summer periods of high demand, the bean counters at Burragoon in our head office, they get us to import zero. We're zero on the tie, so we can play silly buggers. We'll dump steam at our expense because then it fixes our price for the rest of the year. But it's just so much funny money. There's so many machinations. It's so dynamic. It's politics. It's just, there's so many moving parts.
But it's real, because the cost to actually spool up something that costs, dozens of millions of dollars, that's going to be paid for. But then someone who's consuming that marginal bit of power has to pay for that. And that's how they get the money to circulate.
Or you have like Hornsdale, where it just swung 270 megawatts in milliseconds.
Each way, yes.
Yeah.
Well, the magnitude.
120 or 150.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
I've heard of a shopping centre who rang the HVAC company and said, we want you to turn off all the HVAC now, like right now, because they realised they were going to go above this peak that Pete was speaking of. And they didn't care. They just wanted it off. It was a hot day. They just wanted it off, because otherwise they would have paid through the nose for the rest of the day.
A classic example, Harold, is what's happening at Jurien at the Caltex.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
At a sole proprietor level. Yeah.
What's that?
At Caltex Jurien, John Edwards has got his fast DC charger, and they discovered that their tariff went through the roof. I think they were paying a penalty of about $38 a day.
Oh no! Okay.
On their power bill, because one car consumed $15 worth of electricity, and they were being penalised approximately $38 every day for the rest of the billing period.
Whoa.
There was not a single thing you could do about it because they
No.
exceeded this.
And the billing period's 3 months, and you got to pay that fee for 3 months and show that it hasn't happened again to reset down to your lower rate, because
Oh, they must be kicking themselves for installing it. And
yeah, so I
hence
think
John had to put a diesel generator to a site that has absolute rolled gold grid connected power.
Yeah.
Renewable wind turbine power just up the road.
Yeah.
Well, there's two types of unbundled tariffs that a commercial client can be on. So they can be charged based on demand or based on consumption. But even if you've got an unbundled tariff and you're charged on consumption, there's still that capacity charge that can come in. So a perfect example, is let's say a foundry. If they fire up and if they happen to fire up at the time that the grid was at its peak, that half an hour of operation can cost them the equivalent of 2 or 3 months worth of bills. But yeah, so what would have happened there is they would have either been on a peak demand type tariff, which just means that all that's happened is so maybe that was their consumption throughout the whole year, and then they had 1 half-hourly period that was there. Then the demand charges for the rest of the year are going to be at that high peak.
Yep.
So that's one thing that could have happened. Or two, they may have just been really unlucky and had the car charging at the same time that the grid had its peak, and then they would have got hit on capacity charges.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that Caltex doesn't have solar.
It does.
It does.
Oh, right.
20 kilowatts, I believe.
Yeah, right.
The problem with the peaks is because of solar, they've been happening later and later in the day every year. So the demand curve for the grid starts to resemble a bit of a duck. So there's a low during the day because that's when all the solar systems are up. But our peak seems to be sort of around the 6 to 7:30 p.m. mark. That's when most of the grid peaks seem to be lately, the last few years. So yeah, and so solar can't obviously do much at that time.
No, the Productivity Commission actually recommended that solar panels ought to be oriented west to try and mitigate the tail part of that duck curve. But, it's not in the interest of the homeowner per se to have it facing west.
See, because ours here, I think actually the west is actually the majority of the direction. I think it's 3.3 kilowatts worth of panels we've got facing that direction, but that is good because the battery is works with that, because then the later the sunshine is, the later the power goes into the battery, the later that it will run out. So
you get the last catch. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that just kind of happened out of fluke really, but yeah, that does seem logical.
Most of my panels, because of the weird orientation of my house, are actually facing southwest. Which in summer is ideal because the sun is actually almost sets in the southwest. So it gets that last catch.
Yeah, right.
It does really well. But in winter, it's a bit ordinary when you need it the most.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, getting back to the EVs, I mean, they can be touted as some sort of catastrophic problem, but in many respects, if handled appropriately, they can be a ginormous asset. And it's just a matter of.
I mean, we all know that, no matter what, if the government just suddenly turned around and was very pro EVs in Western Australia, it's not going to be overnight that everyone's going to suddenly convert to electric vehicles. So it would be a problem in Denmark that would gradually happen over. The next
Richard, only takes one show because Fran, with biodiversity and conservation, she borrowed her work e-Kona today. Took yesterday. But today, the amount of people that saw that Paul Rucastle thing on the telly last night and hit her up at work about EVs.
Oh, the Fight for Planet A, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
the amount of greenies that watched that and then had a chat with Fran today, the next day, it's, you know, a little bit of pivotal proper information, and then call your pollies and make the cars a bit cheaper, and lots of people are thinking about it.
Yep. Oh, that's good to hear.
A lot more than a year ago.
The EV Council says that they did a survey and asked people who at the moment own internal combustion engine cars, and 56%, I think, was the latest. So it's been going up from 52 to 54 to 56% of people would buy an EV as their next car.
And that was up from some staggeringly low number just last year. It was a massive increase for the last 12 months.
Anecdotally, in the UK, a lot of friends of mine, you know, who are just average people, not particularly interested in what they're driving, but you know, are like, oh no, I think, you know, this car now that we're getting is going to be petrol or diesel, but then the one after, we're pretty sure will be electric. So everyone, the attitude seems to have completely changed.
Yes, it's awesome.
Absolutely, and as you can see in the video, you know.
Yeah, I've seen that this morning.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
They just don't do that.
That was really, really well done.
And of course, most people, you know, we live in our little Tesla bubble, and you know, most of us are doing pretty okay, and that's not most people, and they can't stretch. So you got to be mindful of that. Really, they've got to hang on to their current car till it dies.
What I really liked about I think my favourite bit of the whole bit wasn't the Tesla actually, you know, destroying the fossil fuel car, but it was when at the end they showed
that guy in the high vis
how much CO2 the Tesla actually consumed to charge off the grid, and then made the point that if it was from renewable energy, it would be zero. And I thought that actual bit of data there, I mean,
that appeals to you and me, Rich. But what I thought was more telling was the guy at the very end who's standing behind the line in the high vis. I made some comment about, you know, I've got to get one of those, or you know, hard rev heads.
Yeah, that was a good.
You know,
Can you guys hear that?
No.
I wasn't sure if you could hear the audio or not coming
No,
through.
you've got the audio off, Harold. Down on the YouTube, click the speaker.
Can't hear that now.
10.7's a pretty good speed, pretty good time.
Yeah, it's a bit jittery. It's not the best feed.
I thought the head of the HSV club was a really good sport.
Yeah, actually, I was really impressed by his. You know, he took it on the chin and got enthusiastic. I was very surprised and pretty happy to see that.
Well, he was basically saying that it'd be awesome. You just need to trick it up a bit, you know.
Yeah,
Exactly. Bling on it.
Slow it down with a wing on the back.
Yeah.
but I do love the fact that is Australia's fastest, most powerful ever production car, ever.
Yeah, ever produced.
And it was killed by a 4-door 5-seater family sedan. And I don't know if you recall that the HSV guy said, "Oh, I hope he can keep it straight on the track."
Yeah.
Well, there was never a doubt. Like it was, you know.
The optics of that whole scene were great.
It was fantastic. And the thing is that Craig Rucastle, that was his first time on a racetrack. And the head of the HSV club, he's obviously been there once or twice before.
And he got 10.7, and I thought, I wonder if that's as fast as you can go. Like maybe there was a lost opportunity. I looked it up, and the fastest I've seen is 10.5. And Craig is a complete amateur. And you know, like Drag Times and other YouTube channels, they've gotten 10.5.
You've got to think there's a little bit of editing, because he did go around the skid pan at the start, the burnout pan, and I don't know whether he had his ludicrous mode fired up or.
Well, that's the first thing I thought too, is I wonder if he was properly told how to use
launch mode.
Use launch mode.
Yeah, just a couple of things on that. That was filmed back in the summer, so that was a pre-Raven car as well.
Oh wow, yeah.
Firstly, it wasn't Raven. Secondly, the new cheetah stance has made them even quicker. So a guy on Sunday in the US did 10.42 with cheetah stance.
Makes you want to upgrade, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, well, see, the thing is now the Tri-Motor comes. I actually think, I truly believe that they may have started delivering Tri-Motors to customers already.
All right.
And they'll announce it on Battery Day.
Well, that's their standard form.
Yeah, and they'll actually have them software locked, so they're not that quick yet. Yeah. So now another thing about that car, that's actually not Australia's fastest car. That was Australia's most expensive and powerful V8. Because the problem with that is when you're rear wheel drive, it's completely useless, and they can't get traction. Whereas the turbo XR6 Turbo Falcon could do about a 10.7, 10.8.
Okay.
It can get traction. There's a difference. That W1 is just a $170,000 burnout car.
Is it only rear wheel drive?
It's a rear wheel drive, yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Commodore, mate.
you just can't get traction.
Hang on, Rob. The XR6 isn't all-wheel drive either.
No, but it's the way it's built, way the engine weight over the front and the whole lot, and the suspension. Suspension is massive on how they set the cars up. So there's a guy just around the corner from me. He's got an XR6 turbo. It's unbelievable.
So what's its ride?
They take the badge off the back.
So what's its ride quality like?
Crap.
So you take a standard Tesla performance family car, and you'd thrash it.
Yeah.
And then just drive the kids to school.
That's it. Yeah. So yeah, the Cheetah stance, which is what it does, is when you on the launch pad, basically it adjusts the suspension so the car's got a different angle, and it's actually made a difference to the performance, which is just by changing suspension, that's what you can do.
So does it squat with the back down, or does it
the other way.
go
the back
the other way, and then does it push down as it takes off?
It drops the front.
Nose down. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It transfers the more weights towards the front of the car.
Yeah, and
So that when it launches,
traction is everything.
So in other words, so then you get that torque, which is the back tyres when
pushing the back
car up, but if it's already down further, it's got further to go. Is that the principle? So it's more like a fulcrum or more pressure on the back tyres. Is that?
Oh, you're losing me on that visualization again, Harold.
Sorry, I was just taking.
I was going back to Taggerman then. Sorry.
I've been watching Yorkshire Vet. I've been watching Yorkshire Vet and seeing images of taking the temperature of cars.
Hey, Sarah Richards just had a baby. It's all a bit fresh.
Yeah, like it was.
I'm sorry, you've been recorded again. My bad. Too much editing.
I'm not bothering. It's all good.
Australia.
So can you imagine what the Tri-Motor Plate is going to be like?
Well, particularly on the Roadster.
Yeah. Well, no, we're on the Model S. I mean, you got a family car that's probably going to do a 9-second quarter mile.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. When I say 9 second, 9.95 is a 9-second quarter mile.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it gets in the nines. So
and it'll need to get out of the way of the Cybertruck.
Yeah. So if you race at Kwinana, I don't know about the other strips, but if your car's capable of doing in the 9s, you're supposed to have a helmet and roll cage. And what happens is some guys go down there on Wednesday night and they go, oh, my car will only do 12 seconds, in these V8s, and they'll run down there in 9.2, and then the blokes are running. You're a prick. You weren't supposed to run your car at that speed, because there's some bloody fast cars down there, like Nissan Patrols that they drive off the street, change the tyres, and they run down the track in 9.5 seconds, and you think, how do they manage that?
So the Model S, if it does now currently 2.5 seconds, so what are we talking about with that? Maybe 2.2?
It was a couple of tenths, I think. That drag time, Scott, I think, did a show.
Probably 2.3.
Still make me sick.
Yes, indeed. Well, what's your prediction, Rob? So you're saying that on Battery Day, they will have announced that performance Model S's are already out there with the 4070 battery.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah,
Well,
there was
that's,
What's that?
there was an analyst firm that tweeted out. It was a long series of tweets. It was about 7 pages or 8 pages of tweets.
research something or other, weren't
And they basically were indicating that they predicted that the S's and X's, well, they mainly said S, rather than having battery modules, it would be like the Model 3, where it's just a whole lot of batteries in the pack as one item. Well, in fact, Model 3 has 3 packs.
Yes, yeah.
3 modules, sorry. They were predicting that would just be one entire module.
I agree. I think that's most likely.
Yep. And that the format would be 40 millimeters diameter by 70 millimeters long. So using the 2170, which is 21 millimeters diameter and 7 millimeters long, these battery cells would be 40 millimeters across. And the way they do that, well, one big problem with the current battery technology that Tesla is using in its 18650s and 2170s is that basically there's a tab at the anode and the tab at the cathode. And basically one is on the inside and one is on the outside of the foil, which wraps around and around and around. So the current has to go right around the entire long foil route to get to the negative terminal, and down around the other way to get to the positive, which means the internal resistance is quite high. So what Tesla are going to do is a tabless design whereby effectively on one side, on the anode side, you have a tab that's at one side of the stack, and at the negative side you have a tab at the bottom, so that the current has only got to travel, well, just in the local area of that wrapping. It doesn't have to go all the way into the center.
Right.
So
I
that
see.
way you can make a very fat battery that's got a very long coil of tape, because the current doesn't have to spiral all the way inwards. It just goes
so you'd have
to the edges.
So both your positive and your negative would be on one end of that cell.
Yeah,
one end of that cylinder.
So imagine if you roll up paper, you can imagine that you might only connect it on the inner side here and on the outside here. But what they do is they connect on one side, it's all on this side is going up that way, and on the other side it's going down that way. So it's much more efficient, and then they're going to get larger cells, which I don't know if it actually increases the packing ratio.
Because I would think that what you want is actually more narrower cells so that you could get a higher peak power. That would be
casing. Because too much casing and
that's right.
Well, I understand that, but you're
volumetric. There's no difference in volumetrically packing circles. It doesn't matter what the diameter of the circle is. You can basically pack almost the same ratio in a rectangular volume, regardless of the size of the circles. In other words, in extreme, you could have one circle in a rectangle or a square, say, or you could have 4 smaller circles. And apparently the theory is that the packing density doesn't really alter that much.
Okay.
So, definitely, like Jason alluded to, it's the packaging. So you don't need the 0.5 millimeter stainless steel or whatever it is case.
True, but you're still drawing current from less cells, from fewer cells.
Yeah, which means your bus bars have to be bigger. You know, your interconnects.
Yeah.
And I guess, that's right. So, the Tesla battery modules, each cell has a spot welded built-in fuse. Effectively, it's a fusible link. So should that cell short, the little fuse will pop.
Itself out, yeah.
Well, presumably, you'll just need a larger version of that to protect the pack should there be a failure. And I guess in one sense, you will lose more capacity in one event. So rather than losing one small cell, you'll lose one bigger cell. But then I guess Tesla knows what the proportion of that loss is, and it's probably these days quite small. But the big advantage is you get more pack density, because it's more efficient to have larger packs with thinner, effectively you have less covering. because there's less surface area to volume, and the
I
surface area
understand the thing
represents
about taking away because originally it was the 16 modules all firewalled separately. So if you did get thermal runaway, it wasn't going to take everything else out. But obviously they'll have data now on whether that's how likely
I
that
think
is.
the modules it was harking back to the Roadster, which they called them leaves. And I forget how many, I think there were 16 or 12 or something of that. And their mistake was the first 2 leaves was the actual, or maybe it was a bit more than that, was actually providing the 12-volt system power for all the electronics. But it was in series with all the other leaves. And one thing that's very bad in batteries is to differentially draw from batteries in series, because the current has to flow through all of them. But if the voltage is different, it's not good for the batteries, because it's hard to balance. But anyway, that's the prediction that this analyst company tweeted out last week, and it was quite interesting.
What was the analyst company name?
Oh,
is the thread still up?
Oh yeah, there is. I just don't know. I'll try and look it up.
It was called Reflex Research on Twitter.
That's it.
And they're at, I lost them. Yeah, Reflex Research. Harold actually forwarded it on to me, but they do some massive long threads. But yeah, they've got a lot of good info. Reflex Research, and they're at Reflex Funds, all one word.
At Reflex Funds.
FUNDS.
Oh yeah.
Good out.
Okay, so we'll try and do this live.
Oh, that's bright.
Which date was it, Jace?
Oh, that one in particular. I was trying to find it before, but the threads go for so long and they're buried within each other that I couldn't find it, to be short.
Yeah, cool. That's not good enough.
No, I know. Well, I had to go and change out the slider for a goon, and there was other stuff going on in the background. Settle down. I mean, I had to go see if the baby was doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My headset went flat, so I actually had to change the other ones. That was one of the main ones.
It was on the 14th.
Yeah. So yeah.
Wow, they've got long threads. You're right. Oh, that's it there. So it showed this thread. No, that's not it. Yeah, it was enormously long. Tesla fleet.
They keep linking to their own threads within an already long thread, and before you know it, you're on a different tangent. But
yeah,
it's worth having a dig in. There's some good stuff in there.
They basically said, how do we share that?
That was the first time I'd heard of the 4070s, was when you pinged it to me with this thing.
Yes, yeah, and that was quite interesting.
Oh, actually, I might have it because you sent it to me in a message.
Actually, there it goes. It's going backwards. Yeah, I did send it to you in a message. Thing is, they do pump out a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, oh, here we go. There we go. Okay. So they mention
One.
There you go. Short answer with very large error bars despite specific predictions. I think Tesla announced its Kato Road facility in Fremont has started production of 40 millimeter to 70 millimeter cells with 25% volumetric energy density and 3.6 times the volume versus 2170s at 85. Whoops. What
and 130 kilowatt hour Model S and X's. Yeah.
Yes, 130 kilowatt hour pack could fit in the same pocket.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned test. There you go. There's the tabless
yeah.
cell design. Could significantly reduce resistance and enable far larger new cylindrical cell format. And they do link to a thread that actually speaks about how that all works. And then they're basically saying that the Kato Road, a single Roadrunner cell line will target 400,000 cells a day, which is roughly what Gigafactory one of those cells, one of those lines does.
Where are they getting all their info from?
I don't know. But I guess now it's out. It's now out on the interwebs, and we'll be able to measure against it in a few weeks' time. Well, it's about a month, isn't it? So it's probably, if today's the 19th, it's got to be the best part of 30 sleeps away.
Yeah, a week before the end of the next quarter.
Is it going to be? Is it on a Thursday, or like? Cause a lot of their stuff is like their shareholder stuff's on the Wednesday, isn't it?
Sure.
It must be. Well, the 22nd is a Tuesday, and I think it's the 22nd of September. So it'll be the Wednesday, the 23rd for us. So that'll be cool. We'll be able to discuss that on another AUA. Hey.
The other part, the batteries are one part. The motors are not really a problem because they can get a fair bit of power out of the motors, but getting the power delivery from the batteries to the motors is really critical. Now, if you remember when they upgraded the P85D insane to ludicrous, when it was insane and you go under hard acceleration for a very small amount of time, it was delivering 1,300 amps to the motors. Under ludicrous mode, it's delivering 1,500 amps to the motors. Now, what they had to do was they had to actually put Harold could probably explain it better, but
Inconel fuse, wasn't it?
Pyrotechnic type fuse, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They had to use Inconel. Yeah, had to use Inconel. There is a pyro fuse which is different, or it might be part of the same part. And the point of the pyro fuse is when you have an impact and you set off airbags, this actually has pyrotechnics inside, which actually self-destroys this fuse link to prevent any chance of, say, your high voltage cabling being crushed together and shorting and then causing the battery pack to melt. But yeah, it was true, it was Inconel. And in fact, a few weeks ago, there was a hackathon in the States, and there was a guy who had actually retrofitted his car with ludicrous mode. And he had to do that by getting into his MCU, well, probably eMMC, and writing new files on his controller. And in some of the P85s, you had to change the current measuring doodad. You had to recalibrate it. And apparently Tesla, in every single car, they have every serial number of the P85Ds that could qualify for ludicrous but hadn't gotten it. So they could actually, hi Fran, they could actually upgrade it. They knew what reference to give it. But some of the cars you had to retrofit the Inconel fuse. But the modern, P100Ds, all you got to do is flick this software switch, and you're dead right, Rob. It's the 1,500 amp limit. But what this guy actually said was, you can basically play with all the settings, so you can change that current limit to anything you like. But he said one risk is you might start popping those little cell fuses.
Oh yeah.
Because you can literally draw as much power as the inverter can switch.
Yeah. Harold, could I just ask you? You've lost me in a lot of this stuff. But one of the reasons that Tesla bought Maxwell Technologies was for the work that they've done, not only on manufacturing these dry batteries, the efficiency of the batteries, the capacity, all that sort of stuff, but also with the work that they've done on supercapacitors. And I'm just wondering if we're getting close to seeing that power extraction from capacitors coming up shortly. I mean,
I really hoped so.
I understand that Elon Musk did his master's and his thesis on capacitors.
Yeah.
And when he visited Maxwell's, he would have, his eyes would have been absolutely shining over.
Yeah, but apparently, as much as he is a fan of supercapacitors, and me personally, I would have thought it was a perfect thing, because imagine if you have perhaps one or 2 kilowatt hours of supercapacitors, which volumetrically would be quite large and inefficient, but still it means that when you're regenerating at traffic lights, all that energy can go to a supercap and then be given back to the motor without even involving the battery at all. Plus, for power boost, you could pre-charge these the supercaps gently, and then dump that energy into the motors. But Elon Musk has been quoted in interviews as specifically saying that, as far as he's concerned, he sees no role in supercapacitors. No role for supercapacitors in his cars, which I personally find disappointing, because it just seems such a logical thing to do. But I think as far as he's concerned, logically, there's so much capacity in the battery pack that kind of advantage is lost on him, and he doesn't see that as there's being any point implementing it. But perhaps in the future he might. And the real killer app, I think, is this continual regeneration that you do at traffic lights, and slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. And why involve your battery pack and effectively slightly wear it out for all of those incidental charging and recharging? But the real beauty of the Maxwell technology is this dry electrode technology. Apparently it can save a hell of a lot of your production line, because a lot of the effort goes into, particularly in California and most, I dare say, developed countries who care about volatile organic compounds. You've got to recover all these VOCs from the ovens that are trying to cook this compound out as it's really a solvent or a carrier of your graphite and other material. It's a real revolution, and it's going to save so much money in the production process, which is probably why this Reflex researcher basically saying that in the Cato Street building, they can do the equivalent of an entire Panasonic battery line in probably a much smaller space, more efficiently. Because apparently these ovens that dry off well, you haven't just got the ovens to dry it off, you then got the refrigeration required to condense it, or at least the heat exchangers required to condense all this vapor back to a liquid and make sure you can't emit any of it to the atmosphere. And obviously that's something that's going to be highlighted, because Elon Musk has said that there's going to be, accompanying after the shareholders meeting, there will be the battery tour, which is some kilometers away from Fremont, showing this actual line. And I think that dovetails nicely into what Rob said earlier. Is it's pretty clear that Tesla will have already gotten, if they're not production cars already on the road, he'll be announcing that when you order a performance, whatever Model S, it will have this new battery technology, or maybe it already has. I mean, one thing that Reflex said was they basically predicted that there's been no battery modules within the pack. I think they actually do also say that the pack may no longer be removable, which is entirely possible, because the Plaid Model S's, they're going to have a different body. So it makes sense then to get rid of some of the extra metal which is involved in having the skin on the top of the pack and the skin on the bottom of the floor, and just have one skin. Or, well, yeah, I guess one skin, where your pack is probably like the Model 3s. So it's going to be very interesting.
Big sump pan.
Well, yes. But unfortunately, Martin, the supercapacitors, which is what Maxwell was probably, they were pioneers in supercapacitors, is of less interest to Tesla, at least at this stage. But I don't know. And maybe with the Roadster having 200, well, I guess 200 kilowatt hours of pack, and it stated 1,000 kilometers of range, probably had more to do with how fast they could rip the energy out of those batteries and dump them into the 3 motors to get that ridiculous 1.9 second, 0 to 100 speed.
I was going to say, speaking of super capacitors, it's something they really need to keep working on, because to get the best out of the cars on the racetrack, they've got to solve the regenerative braking issue. And I remember when the Teslas first came to Perth, 5 of the guys took their cars down to Wanneroo Racetrack, and they did basically 1 lap of the track, and their car started to overheat because they forgot to turn the regen braking off. Now our early cars are limited to about 50 kilowatts of regen. The Porsche Taycan has got 265, and wow. you would have seen the other day at the racetrack, the Porsche Taycan overheated because he had his regen on. And if you don't have your regen on, you're going to lose too much energy around the track. If you have your regen on, the batteries overheat. So super capacitors, have the potential to solve some of these issues.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not heavy; they're just very large. But there is talk of using nano materials to basically form a capacitor, a supercapacitor, like with nanotubes, which they've done in laboratories, very small scale, but very high capacitances. Because, capacitors aren't that efficient at storing charge.
No, they're very low energy density, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's certainly interesting times, and it's going to be very exciting in 30 odd sleeps, just to see what's going to happen. Because I think a lot of share analysts aren't going to understand the implications, and presumably just how far ahead Tesla are.
Did you know the Porsche Taycan that went around the track? Do you know what its fuel consumption was?
0.
138 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers.
Oh, hang on. What does that mean? Sorry, what?
Yeah, so 1.38 kilowatt hours per kilometer.
138.
Oh, so 1,380 watt hours per kilometer.
No, 13,800
watt hours.
Yes.
Per kilometer.
So basically, if he had a 138 kilowatt hour battery, he would have burnt it out in 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
It's actually a good write up. I think it might have been in Inside EVs a couple of days ago.
Yeah, that's 1,380 watt hours per kilometer, whereas our cars get roughly 200, bit less. So it's I
drive at less than 100 in the morning.
7 times. Oh yes.
Wow.
So the test was this guy in Germany wanted to take an electric car and prove that he could do 1,000 kilometers in a day, and do a couple of laps around the Nürburgring. And he was going to take the Model S, and he said, no, I'll take the Porsche because the Porsche has got the big racing brakes, and that'll be good round the track. And he did the 1,000 kilometers, not a problem. He charged up and all that. But once he got onto the track, he found that he had to put a bit of charge in it first. So he'd sort of supercharged first. So the battery was a little bit warmer. Then he raced it, and of course the regen braking just overheated his battery really quickly. And it went into turtle mode. And he probably should have taken the Model S in the end and just turned the regen off.
I thought Porsche was saying, how rubbish Teslas were, that they overheated when they were on the track.
Yeah, exactly.
And that the Taycan was not going to do that.
Yeah, you got to. I think whoever's driving the Porsche has got to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still just can't comprehend why they bother with a 2-speed gearbox in it. It's another thing.
I didn't know it did. Yeah, okay.
It's basically the advantage is so tiny that it's not really worth it.
What does that say? Oh yeah, okay.
Actually, I'm trying to get it on the computer, but I basically got that, which is a turtle, and it says power reduced, service is required.
What, for service? Wow, okay. Yeah, because they tried to put used to be boxes in the original Roadsters, didn't they? But they just kept breaking them.
Correct.
Yes, and they left it in second gear.
That's it.
Yeah. To be the fastest charging EV featuring 900-volt architecture, delivering 20 miles per minute.
Challenge accepted.
20 miles, what does that mean? That's 1,200 miles per hour, isn't it? That's 1,900 kilometers per hour. That's all right.
A lot of heat.
Are they got cars in production?
I don't think they have.
No?
They're talking
No,
about
not yet.
next year, 2021, for a 100 kilowatt hour as well as a 130 kilowatt hour version.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And they're talking 570 mile range or something like that for the 130. Real life, 517. There you go. EPA range.
But they're going for the premium car market, aren't they? They're ultra luxurious.
Yeah, very
quite
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah, they are. They're being launched on the 9th of September.
Yeah, cool.
Interesting. They've gone with 900-volt packs. That's because I know that Tesla obviously have steadfastly stayed at 400 or just under 400. So, because I knew you had issues with going to 900, but 900.
I think that's all about the charger, basically the charging infrastructure. To get, well, the Tritium said it was.
Oh, it did say it was 900 volt, didn't it?
900 volt, 200 amps. No, sorry, was that? No, it's more than that.
500 and 200.
See down the bottom, full bi-directional as well, vehicle to everything, vehicle to grid, vehicle to vehicle.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, wow.
Oh, that's right. So they can basically fill up their neighbours or someone else. You can fill up a friend. The Tritium, the 350 kilowatt Tritium, which they state they can do 350 kilowatts. Sorry, it's up to 500 amps. Sorry, 500. So in our cars with 400 amp,
400 volt.
400 volt battery packs, we can only absorb 200 out of the possible 350 kilowatts that fast chargers can develop. So ironically, you can get more in a Tesla on a version 3 supercharger than you can get, which is rated at 250 kilowatts, than you can from a 350 kilowatt fast DC charger.
Yes, I see.
The way they get the extra power is the higher voltage. So because otherwise your hose going to your connector is just going to be too fat, because you're pumping, well, you have to pump 1,000 amps. Sorry, or 700 and something amps to get your 350 kilowatts at 400 volts. So all they do is they just up the voltage, and Tesla can do that too. And one thing I don't know that Lucid or Porsche are doing is whether they're keeping the pack at 900 volts as far as the inverter is concerned, or whether they basically switch there's 2 packs.
Yeah.
When they charge, they have them in series, and when they drive, they have them in parallel.
Yeah.
Which is a possibility, which is quite easy to do.
I think the Porsche has a DC to DC converter on board.
Oh.
Right, or maybe they just run the inverters on 900 volts, which is, you can do that too. That's fine. But really, the main advantage for the higher voltage, I think, is mainly to do with charging as opposed to driving efficiency. So I don't think the Taycan is particularly efficient. Notwithstanding, Bjorn Nyland did a video and cook 19-inch rims or tires, both, well, same thing. And I think he was quite impressed that it wasn't all that much worse than the Model S.
He didn't pinch them skinny ones off the i3, did he? The 19s.
They were skinnier. They were skinnier tires, weren't they? And they were skinnier and higher profile, and not as. And they were EV tires, not as sticky compound. But yeah, so that's the thing with charging is because I think the superchargers must be pumping out much more than, well, if it's 250 kilowatts at 400 volts. No, that can't be right. Anyway, carry on. Sorry, 250. It's 625 amps. That sounds weird. No, that's actually right. That probably is right.
Because that's a liquid cooled cable.
625 amps is what they're pumping through.
Wow.
Whereas the CCS only goes up to 500. Which is why on a CCS you can get 200 kilowatts off Tritium's 350 kilowatt charger in our cars. And in a version 3 supercharger, you can get 250 for a short time.
Yes.
Oh, and speaking of charging, there was some controversy in Europe regarding charging rates, supercharging rates, which had been, this is standard superchargers, which had been reduced. And a lot of guys here had a similar experience with their Model 3s, and even I had with my X, where it was in Eton, it was charging at a lower rate. Well, in Europe, apparently many of the sites are now returning to greater power levels. So the theory is it was either a glitch in a firmware, it's either the supercharger firmware that they had possibly updated and gotten something incorrect, or perhaps they meant to do it, and now because people have complained, they've undone that. So people in Europe are reporting that they're getting 140 kilowatts from, or 144 kilowatts from the version 2 superchargers. So hopefully Eton might be doing the same thing once we get to some new software versions.
I think it was a particular cars like Nigel's car. His supercharging rates were really poor. Whereas I used the supercharger a week after him, and mine were good. Or mine were normal.
Yeah, but mine had reduced. I'd gotten like 130 something kilowatts. I don't know, in March. And then in July, it had gone down to 113 as the peak, and that was at 20% state of charge. And obviously my battery's warmed because I drove it all the way from Perth. So it had plenty of time to warm up.
So I haven't done a software update since January though. So.
Oh, don't you need to do an update? Haven't you been warned that if you don't do an update, bad things will happen?
Yeah, but I did the update that was supposed to be done, where they said they were going to have a slowdown of the MCU problem. But yeah. I'm not doing an update now.
No, I thought they had sent a notification out that if you don't do an update, they couldn't guarantee continued functionality of updates or something because they were going to change some system. It might not, that time might not have elapsed yet, but they did set a deadline that if you hadn't done an update by that deadline, then you might not be able to get any updates, and you'd have to go to the service center to get your car manually updated because they changed some security feature or something, I think.
And I'm the complete opposite to you, Rob. I have it on advance, so I get the updates immediately. Bang, update. There you go. Straight away. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll just leave it now. To be honest, most of the updates in the early cars are pretty boring.
But you don't have autopilot, Rob, so it's not much.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm missing out on much.
There's not much. The headlights work good now. Actually, the funny thing is, my adaptive headlights probably work better than any other car, because I've seen Model 3 guys complaining a lot about how poor it is, but on the early Model S, it was really bad to start with, and now it's very good.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I've got. That's what I got with charging. So the very latest charge I got 113 kilowatts, 113 and so on. But previously it was 132, 128, blah, blah. And back before Eaton was upgraded, you know, you were getting your standard 114s. So definitely lately, well, after the 20th week, it had reduced with warm batteries. But, you know, who knows, maybe on another firmware update that might have changed. In Europe, they think it has. But
So,
that's,
have any of you guys used the Coburn DC charger recently?
Yeah.
No? Because I'm at Coburn, we only get sort of 30 kilowatts from that DC charger, whereas from Gwelup, from West Perth, from Bridgetown, we're still getting the 44, 45 kilowatt.
Have you ever got more than 30 at Coburn?
Yes, yeah, we originally we were getting the 44, 45. So I don't know. No one else has seemed to complain. So
Have a chat with Eddie at Gemtech and find out if it's been nobbled for some reason.
yeah, I'll do that. Yeah,
that's possible. The other thing is it at all possible that your car's still cold? As weird as that sounds.
Well,
I mean,
that's no. I was thinking at the first time we used it back in June. The first time it happened it was 3 degrees. No, I thought, okay, it's cold. That's not a problem. But the last few times we've driven 50 k's to get there, and it's basically been 19, 20 degrees outside.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's quite strange actually.
Because I've driven TWA, and look, it's only 6 k's away, and my car's been at super slow rate at the Tritium charger. But that's a short distance. So temperature makes a big difference, and
it does, yeah.
My car's garage, and I've read my battery at sort of 17 degrees with power limit. Oh, sorry, regen limit. So it's possible, Rob. But yeah, I mean, I can go and have a look at it. I'll be happy to give it a go to see.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, because Joseph normally would note that down, but he hasn't had a problem. So I mean, it doesn't worry. So, we're there for an extra 5 minutes. We're getting a coffee there anyway. Go up to the dome. But Bridgetown was good. Bridgetown was 45 kilowatt. That was good. Superchargers was normal. I mean, look, if anyone gets slower supercharging speeds than our car, you got a problem. Because we've got so many kilometres on the clock.
Well, there's sorry, not a member. He's a owners club president in the States he has a 2017 Model S, who is seriously looking at he's buying a new battery pack because his supercharging rate has declined because he's supercharged it a fair bit. And I think he said that it's roughly in the order of approximately $28,000 for an exchange pack.
Wow. Times that valuable. But...
Oh, speaking of which, we just ticked over 100,000 k's in this car.
You got a photo?
Oh, cool.
Not of it ticking over, unfortunately. I realised that about 100 and something k's after it. I meant to. I was like, oh, yeah, typical.
I've got 10 more to go. I'm not far behind you.
I'm not going to brag, but I did that probably last year.
Long time ago, yeah.
Well,
we haven't done the lap in the Tesla yet.
Well, mine just ticked over 140,000 today. I think it's 140,007 kilometres, and I missed it. What they need to do is have like a little thumb wheel thing where you can just do whatever distance you want, so you can take a photo of it.
Yeah, there might be a
reason. Yeah, no, that's not.
Yeah, we're all back in warranty.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So you can't do that.
We used to take screenshots at 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 kilometres.
Oh yeah.
After 1,000 k's, our average was like 210 because of all the insane runs and test drives. And
that
then
sounds like my car.
You can see how it improves. over time when you sort of, oh yeah, I've done that. You know,
My lifetime average is 192.
that's good for an X.
It is.
What's
It
yours,
is.
Jay?
Just 229, I think.
229.
Yeah, but I can tell the difference between my 520 treadwear tyres because my traction control fires up all the time because they're not sticky enough, whereas Harold doesn't know what that's about. He never sees his traction control light.
What's your average, Richard?
We've got a stowaway.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh. There's a pussy in your car.
Yeah, mine's about 200, I think. Pretty much bang on.
200. There's some of these Model 3 drivers are getting 135 and 137.
Yeah, they get the same amount of added charge rate at 11 kilowatts that I get at 16 or 17 added kilometres.
My Model 3's 147 since new.
June.
Wow, cool.
But yeah, that's just, I like to put my foot down every now and again though.
No, yours will get better in the summer. Yours will get better.
Well, and yeah, don't forget, it's if you put the heater on, that just kills it in winter on a short trip.
Yeah,
definitely.
Having the heater on and so on. I think when I first got it, it was just below 140. It was 138, 139 for the first month or two, but it's gone up and up since then.
I've done a little bit of trailer work as well, to the point where I was dumping some dirt on a vacant block on the soft sand, and even though I didn't plug the trailer in, so the car didn't know it had the trailer on it, because it was using so much power, it assumed it had the trailer on it and put it into trailer mode.
Clever car.
Yeah, because I was using it to dump some dirt when I dug out my lawn, and then I was using it to compact the dirt because, you know, Model X's are really good four-wheel drives in the soft sand.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you drive it on soft grass and it just puts 2 furrows in your lawn because they're kind of heavy.
Have you watched the video with the Model Y doing the torque vectoring?
No, that sounds cool.
Bjorn's videos were showing his Porsche, the nice on-screen display with the torque vectoring front to rear. That was pretty cool. I can see it on Scan My Tesla, but it's nice to have it in a graphic.
Because that's one of the great things that electric motors have over combustion engines for 4-wheel drives. When you're going over rocks and stuff like that, being able to control that.
Well, Cybertruck's going to be the one for that, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
What's saying that though, it's only going to be tri-motor, and I wonder if maybe Harold, if that's what you're going to say, Rivian may.
Yes, where they do the tank thing where it spins.
Yeah.
That's impressive. It's a great way to chew up tyres.
I've got a question. Huge difference.
A question: How do you tell what the average has been for the whole period of time the car's been running for the kilowatt hours?
That's a great question. What most of us have done, what I've certainly done, is, you know how you've got 2 trip meters, you've got trip A and trip B. You can actually rename what they are. It just defaults as trip A, trip B. So I just renamed mine total, and then I've just promised myself to never clear it. So I've left that one alone. And I'm not sure about the Model 3s, but the S's and X's, you can choose which trip meter, if any, to show on your dash, on the binnacle. So I just don't reset trip meter. Well, I did have a secondary trip meter when I went around Australia to see how far that was, but I just leave my so-called B trip meter. I've never reset it since I bought the car. So, because the trip meters actually tell you the watt hours over that trip. And if that trip happens to be the whole life of your car, well, that's the whole life.
I've got 4 on mine, I think. I've got 1 since new, trip A, trip B, and trip A, trip B, and I've set one of those 2 since new. And then I've got since last charging current journey.
I think that's the stars.
Oh yes, yes. The since last journey or last charge, that resets every time you charge. But
yeah.
if you keep your trip meter, I've found that piece of road track thing. It's in Karratha. That's up to the antenna, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I should have done it going up the hill because it shows the tyres doing the torque vectoring thing a lot better.
Yes. Yeah. But yes, that's what you do. You just there's an A and a B meter, and you just pick one of them and just rename it, and then just promise yourself never to reset it. And
where are they? How do you find them?
Oh, Model 3. Nigel, Ashley, have you?
Yes.
Right of the screen where the windscreen controller
That's
is.
correct. It's on the bottom right.
Left, you get your PSI tyre pressures.
Yeah.
Right, you get your trip meters, and then you scroll up and down between.
Yeah.
And can you rename?
Grazie.
Name them. Click on the little 3 dots, and you can rename them.
Ah, cool.
Okay. Well, it must still be there because I didn't even know that.
Yep.
I've swiped it. I've just seen the one for that particular trip, which resets. But okay, that's good. Something else I learned. Thank you, boys.
Yeah. We'll have to write that up as a video. Oh man, so many things to do. So many things to do. If I had a pen, hang on. I just got to alter the.
I don't know about the Model 3s, but the Model S, the format of the screens has changed quite a bit over the years as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you take photos of them, you can look back 4 years and say, oh, that's what it used to look like, because the updates changed your screen formats.
It's funny how you see the new update, and often you go, oh, I don't really like that, and then you get used to it, and it's like you forgot what the last one was.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so we want trip meter, lifetime trip.
On that though, it just made me think that on Facebook in about 2010 there was a massive update, and to this day I still can't find where all my photos are easily.
Oh, don't worry, they've got them and they're looking after for you.
They've probably sold them.
They're in China.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whenever they recognise other people's faces and suggest who that person is, and they're scarily accurate, it's okay. They're just trying to be helpful. Don't worry.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. One other little funny thing I noticed the other day, when I go to the gym early in the morning, I leave my phone at home and I just use the card to get into the car. And sometimes I just get in and drive it, and it doesn't require me to put the card in the center console. It's still in my pocket. Is that normal, or is there a flea somewhere?
Peter, it might be because you've left your phone in the car. It might
No, the phone's in the house.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
Do you have to badge it on the pillar to get into it first?
Yeah, you have to do that, but it doesn't have to be on the console. You can put it in your pocket and it works.
So, sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes
Don't you have a couple of minutes? Like if you pull away, if you swipe it on the door pillar, get in and then drive off within a minute or two. Because I remember me and Emma had that on when we had the 3 in the States, and like if we got in and then messed around and looked at something and then go to drive off, put it into drive, we then have to use the card. But if we I just swiped it and then got in and went, then that just worked.
Oh, okay. It's got a timer in it or something.
I think so.
You could be right, Richard, because I don't remember consciously putting it on the console when I hired one the same as you in the States. That could be true.
I'm pretty sure, because when we would have been sat there and we're loading it up, or with our bags from a motel or whatever, then
you do. But if you just hop straight in on a trip, like a side, that could be true.
Remember that trip, Richard, before baby?
When we could do things.
Yeah, how many months ago was that trip again?
About 15 years.
Oh, right. I was thinking 9.
9.
10 even now. I'm a bit older.
Oh dear. So apart from buying 2 semi trucks, who's going to buy Model Y? Who wants a Model Y?
Yep.
Really, Rob?
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Bullshit, Rob. You going to get full self-driving?
No.
Seriously. So,
No,
are
it
you
comes for
guys,
free. You can't. He's got no choice. He has to have it.
Oh,
You
wow.
can't turn it off.
Rob, are you going to? Are you guys selling the S and getting a performance Y, or are you keeping?
No,
both,
I would never sell the Model S. Never.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Oh, second car. Awesome.
Yeah, and look,
Fantastic.
I think the Model Y, as far as the logistics of it, the way they've built the inside, the room, the storage room, the way the seats fold. But
Oh, it's a brilliant car.
I think it's superb. I think it really is very, very good.
So, are you going to a performance version or just a regular?
Oh yeah, you can't go slower than. You know. But I mean, look, one of the reasons to buy it is actually to drive it around Australia. But I'm really not looking. It's not looking very hopeful for a few years yet.
Hey Rob, we could have like a race.
Whoever gets
But
it first.
it depends on. I'll have to pay off I'll have to pay off Harry to say make sure I get mine first, and then just leave the next day.
So,
Or just drive up and down WA 3 times and tell them it's the same as going around.
Yeah.
Same
So,
distance.
Robbie, are you going to get as soon as it's available?
No, I'll wait for a couple of years. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's no hurry. Look, we can't go anywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's not really much use, is it? I just can't. I really can't see any vaccine coming out for a few years. You know.
Oh, it's going to be at least a year. Yeah.
You know, they're talking about how they're locking in a vaccine now. And it's like, yeah, really.
No, it'll be the middle of next year.
Yeah, I think you might be right then.
I tell you what, I hope the vaccine rollout is faster than the NBN rollout.
Yeah, well, I mean, all they've got is a letter of intent to stitch up a deal if it's effective and it works, and that's all. But
I want the Sputnik version.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I like the Russian attitude. Yeah, we've got a vaccine. Probably
I want the
tested it.
SpaceX version.
Oh, SpaceX version.
Yeah, Elon's vaccine. I've already got half of it.
well, how many injectors could you fit in the top of a Falcon 9? And it could just rain down needles, and you're just like.
But knowing Elon's views on COVID-19, they could all be placebos.
Good.
You are an evil man, Pete.
Whoever's doing Peter's work and keep talking, the share price is going up.
Oh dear.
Back in the green.
And they're not even in the S&P yet.
No, there was some talk, because today's Wednesday, that it may be today after the market closes.
The announcement of them being included, right? Yeah.
Tell you in 12 hours, or six or 7.
Well, there's two
When I wake up.
parameters. There's the date at which it's announced that you will be included, but then they also announce the date at which you actually do get included, and that can be separated by some time.
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks away on average, usually.
No, there's some smart cookies. They've done their homework because the share split's fed into it, and this will just keep the momentum going, the S&P, and then Battery Day, and then end of quarter, and, we're on a good run to Christmas.
After Battery Day, Elon tweeted, was it yesterday or the day before, that the second rewrite, he's expecting that to be available as a limited public release, 6 to 10 weeks.
Yep.
So the 6 weeks mark would be pretty much straight after Battery Day.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yes, exactly.
And then third quarter results coming 2 weeks after Battery Day. Yeah.
Well, at least, it'll be at least the sales results, the production results. Yeah.
Production numbers.
Yeah.
What did I say? Yeah, I mean the production.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. And that will obviously give you a great indicator of what their profit's going to be, because their sales are going to have to have increased, or production, sorry, because Fremont would have been at full rate for an entire quarter. as opposed to the last one.
And
Happy
Shanghai
days.
would have ramped up.
Yes. Yep. And the fourth quarter will probably be when China makes their first Model Y.
So given Rob's comment before about the COVID and the travelling and what you've mentioned before, Harold, about we would have had a store, maybe service centre pre-COVID, what does that mean? Because they can't travel, as in the Eastern States Tesla hierarchy, we're not going to have a store or service centre anytime soon until they, because come and do 2 weeks quarantine and do all your bloody Zoom meetings and stay for a month or two and then bugger off back east and square us up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the problem is, it's actually interesting because one thing I heard, you know, like with supercharger things, is someone had a throwaway comment about, I think it might have been with reference to the Royal Show being cancelled, and there was talk that, you know, they wanted to show people to come over and whatever. And then some medically related person said, well, if we can't get technicians to fix medical lasers, then how can you expect, because, you know, it's not a suitable exemption or whatever, as an essential worker, how do you expect show workers and blah, blah. So I guess Tesla's, one of their issues would be, if they wanted to say do supercharging, is you can't send technicians over to commission it, because as we know, electrical contractors install them, but you need to commission it. And these days, they probably don't, the criteria is probably enormously more rigorous. I don't know.
Yeah, but we're coming up to 3 years in October since Eaton was installed, and we've got way more people in Perth now with a bit more technical prowess. So, I mean, surely it can't be that onerous, something can't be talked through, or...
Yeah, well, our smart freeways, it was thought that the delay would be months and months because the main contractor is in the UK providing the systems, and they were going to fly over to commission it. And now it's been done with local resources via telepresence and other assistance.
Where I'm going with that is, you know, you guys kindly invite me along to these things. I feel like a bit of an interloper, but, you know, Tesla owners, WA, you know, you guys have a bit of a portal to be asking this question and go, well, how long do you see this actually dragging on for? We want our stuff now. Elon said, okay, back in March last year. So develop a strategy, you know, a couple of weeks and whatever.
Yeah, well, I guess to be fair, COVID does put a big lead blanket over a lot of things. And it's probably appropriate to be, as much as we've been disappointed with, you know, but we'll put it this way, if you just go onto archive.org, it's not a secret that if you look at Tesla's supercharger rollout map, that as far back as, I think it's September 2017, the Perth supercharger was on the rollout map. Due for installation by I think it was end of the year. Now, as it turned out, that Eaton was installed, and Perth hasn't been in 2018, 19. It's not plausible for it to be installed this year.
Yeah, but the wheels don't stop turning. So that, I mean, you guys have had information that, you know, COVID put a stall on it. So what's their strategy? You know, if the thing goes on for 2 years, they're rolling out all across Canada. China's going crazy. I know we've got a hard border, but like I said, we've got people here now, and we're sitting here Zooming, and lots of the stuff's interweb stuff, and they can put chargers on trucks and they don't get COVID. The contractors are local, and there's plenty of properties, as you know, we've discussed, there's plenty of real estate that's becoming available because, you know, Renault's going down to get Clagger, and Holden sites are becoming available. And how serious are they?
Yeah, well, some of the Holden sites are interesting. I mean, there's that one next to the freeway in Glendalough, as is the Renault, former Renault site on the corner of Main Street and Scarborough Beach Road.
Because we just kick the same stuff around. I mean, well, you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I've been part of it, but, you know, it's a core group, and we're like-minded, of course, but we just need some resources on the ground. And, you know, we had a nice chat today about getting some of those put in other places, but that's external to Tesla. So
yeah.
We need action. And how do we get Tesla to at least commit? If they saw this going on for 12 months, what does that mean? We're having a hiatus for 12 months and our guys are just going to keep working out of the shed in Netherlands? Well, they keep delivering more cars because they can. Hey, there's the irony. They can deliver cars east to Western Australia and commission those. Why can't they?
Absolutely, you're right. I mean, look, COVID is a very important issue that we keep the borders closed. But you're right, Jay. They could train some technicians up here, or train them in what to do and talk them through over the phone.
It's all online of this modern world, as we all know. You know.
Well, the sled is actually sleds can be pre-commissioned because they're simply attached to a power source. And
so maybe it's another angle to push that angle again, going, well, if you see this dragging out for 6 or 12 months, get those sleds over here, pre-commissioned, please, as an interim, obviously, and get some stuff happening.
Well, we do know because there's been photos on Facebook, in August last year, of a few sleds in a Melbourne warehouse, albeit those sleds were Type 2 sleds, so they would have to be upgraded to CCS as well for the Model 3s. But but they can do that internally. They can do that and then ship them over. That's right. It's dead right. So there's not a lot of excuse for not sending over a couple of sleds and having them attached to a power supply at a shopping centre or somewhere that's got enough power.
I guess my question really is how much weight can TOCWA put into getting them to commit to anything in the foreseeable?
Well, we reminded Tesla about what they promised all of us 3 years ago, and they replied with, this was going to be the year. And of course, COVID has just messed that up. Now, in my opinion, that's a valid response, but I guess it's a little bit like, in Australia, if a building site, if the temperature goes above, 38 degrees or 40 degrees.
Oh, in Perth, never worked up north, but in Perth.
Yeah, everyone stops working, right? Well, in Dubai, the temperature is like approaching 50 degrees and everyone keeps working. Or the opposite of that is, if a building site in Perth gets rained out, everyone stops working. Well, if you're in the tropics, well, you just can't do that. Or if there's snow or ice or whatever, so you've got to work to the local conditions. Now, I guess you could say that if COVID becomes the new normal and there is no vaccine, which is plausible, and this thing carries on for possibly dozens of months, like say a few years, well, eventually then there's going to have to be a new normal, or people are going to have to adapt, as we have doing Zoom sessions. Tesla will then have to say, well, let's abandon the idea of sending a technician over. We're just going to do everything by remote control. And that's something that will be appropriate for us to put to them. Maybe not quite right now, because as we know, the head of Tesla, I think, is based in Melbourne, of all places. Tesla's head office is in Sydney, I believe. So it's appropriate to cut them a bit of slack at the moment, given the circumstances. But you're right, in a few months' time, it'll be appropriate to say, well, we're in this new normal. What are we going to do? We can't, if this persists for years, we can't just say, well, everything Tesla does is frozen.
Absolutely.
Because, in China, to their credit,
that's right.
As bad as things were, they're rolling on. And in Germany, and things aren't that great in Germany.
All over the place.
Yeah. So we'd have to then say, well, let's just get this service centre done. Although, to be honest, as Martin said earlier, he's had great experiences at the service centre, and so have I. I'm a bit more relaxed about the service centre, although it's a missed opportunity not having a great one, because you can have Harry Anderson as the sales guy in a proper retail outlet section of the service centre, which would be.
But that's only servicing those of us that are already committed, and those who are prepared to commit without going to a store. It's that foot traffic stuff, and as I've mentioned before, the metric for measuring their success has moved to the mobile servicing. That's why they're punishing us with Taylor popping out in the car, because apparently that's a metric that means something to them.
Yeah.
There's all this untapped potential, and as we know, it's just a numbers game and stores and shop fronts. And
the thing is, Tesla resists having shop fronts.
not in China.
No, and that's right. And the thing is, culturally, or culturally, whatever, however you want to describe it, there are still many people with where the price of the car is absolutely zero issue, that all they want to do is put their rear end on that seat and hop in the car, take it for barely a spin around the block and go, yep, I'll have it. Because I just want to see it in the flesh.
But there's only one Challingworth, and people know that. There's only one Barber Gallows, they know that. There's only one Audi, but have only one Tesla, and
Yes, yeah.
get people.
And to co-locate that in a service centre is ideal because just like in Melbourne, in Richmond, there's a service centre, and they've got what? Well, they had, what is it? 50 square metres. That was that were they had, a sled, they had the battery sled and an S and an X sitting there.
I would think it's going to be quite expensive though to set up a service centre. You know, Nedlands, might not be great, perfect, but it's going to be very expensive. And then if you're going to have a service centre, a walk-in, it's really got to be in Perth. I mean, it's, right in the centre of the foot traffic. I mean, if it's in Nedlands, I mean, I know that there's a Porsche garage there and all that, but...
Yeah, but in Melbourne, Rich, they, Chadstone, they've just got the little shop front like Mercedes did when they, was it Mercedes? Jaguar, they did at Carousel when they were opening that. You just put a couple of cars in a bit of a stall and, pay retail floor space.
Yeah, no, I get that. But what I mean is if you're going to co-locate a service centre and foot traffic, then I don't, that would be very expensive.
It's not so much foot traffic. It's just that there's a location that someone can ring up and go, I want to have a look at the car.
Yeah.
I'll just go there. I mean, Chadstone actually, it's on the second story. It's on the second level. So it's, I don't know whether you call that subprime or whatever, but people don't care. They'll just go there anyway, just to look at it.
They'll fly all the way from bloody Perth just to get on the Terps and look at them on the street.
Well, that's what Jason and I did. We waited in line for the reveal of a left-hand drive car. But yeah, I think the service centre, look, as unpretty as it is, it's still working effectively, but it is a huge missed opportunity in not giving people the opportunity of looking at cars in the flesh.
And I just don't believe the argument that, they need the top brass to be over here to make it happen. I mean, really?
No.
Otherwise, CEOs would spend the whole time flying around on planes going everywhere because nothing can happen without the stroke of their magic pen on location.
Yeah, but they do that all the time. The CEOs go to groundbreakings and stuff. I mean, look at Germany. They didn't have one because they couldn't. And it kind of proves that you don't need one. But because no one actually cares. It's kind of old news the day after.
Yeah.
But yeah, look. Like
there may be another aspect though that they might not actually really want to sell that many cars in Perth, because it's obviously gonna, the more, if Perth becomes flooded with Teslas, the demand for superchargers is going to be even higher, and they can't probably not sell cars here. But if they have a shop front where people walk in and then suddenly they've got a couple of thousand people ordering cars, and they're like, well, now we have to build a supercharger.
Well, Rich, it's clearly a low priority Australia-wide, Perth. It's obvious. As soon as you get to Adelaide, it's obvious where we fit in the picture.
Yeah.
So, and Tesla's always done that, from day one. They focus all their energies on the bigger markets where they can move a lot of cars now.
Yeah.
Because it's numbers.
It's a low-hanging fruit.
Mm.
And I guess that's reasonable for them to pick that first.
Yeah, and I toss between that being okay and then me being, a customer and end user, we're not being okay and seeing your good self, around the world and what they're doing for other customers that have sacrificed less than you and I have.
The only good thing is that, well, in one sense, the Model 3 owners aren't accustomed to free supercharging except for the 1,500 kilometres that they struggle.
They've got to drive to Eton and burn 320 k's up to get a free supercharge.
Which is why, as soon as they put a supercharger in Perth. Rob, I think you were telling me about this. Not my idea. Yeah, that'll be immediately what happens. Everyone will go flock to there, get a charge up, and Tesla won't make anything out of it.
Oh, yeah, but they've prepaid for it. It's, you know, it's a benefit they're not getting that they would if they were in some other capital city.
What's in it for Tesla?
See, the thing is, Richard, with, you know, they connected the two major cities in Australia, Sydney and Melbourne, with basically 5 superchargers. That's great value for money. Whereas to connect Perth with the next nearest city, you know, is a lot of superchargers. So, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, they're not really that interested in selling cars in Perth. Whereas in Sydney and Melbourne, they want to sell as many as they can.
I think the way Tesla would argue against that argument of the missed opportunity of having bumps on seats and selling more cars is that you know, they don't have a demand problem, and basically the problem is keeping up with production. And the next stage will be, well, okay, if production can catch up, well, all they might need to do is discount the cars by $1,000 or what have you, to get the demand, you know, back up. But that $1,000 per car, or that, you know, $100 per car, or whatever that amount is, might be less than putting service centres, you know, putting up 50 more service centres around the globe.
You're probably right. Yeah, I think the profit margin on the cars is higher than people think.
Oh, yeah.
About 25%, isn't it?
The sale, yeah,
it was 23% last quarter, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's just they're doing the right thing. They're turning this money into research, development, and factories.
Oh, it's good. Yeah. Sure.
While you're ahead of the game, you do that.
But the profit margins keep increasing. If they keep the prices the same, the profit margins will keep increasing because they've got quite a lot of operating leverage. They've got quite a lot of sunk cost in these gigafactories, and that's a fixed cost. So every extra unit of car that you produce, you know, the fixed cost is already sunk. So every marginal unit of extra production,
sure,
gets even higher.
And because
all that naysaying aside, Elon said yes to Perth.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
But with every because they're vertically integrated, every production advantage they get to pocket that themselves rather than going to a tier 1 supplier who would be pocketing that and handing over a small discount. But yeah, look, it's
when we were kicking this around a year or so ago, we were, you know, a company with not a lot of market cap. You know, we're a different beast now. In a year's made a massive difference. In Perth, nothing. You know, just chuck it at us, fix us up. We're not talking about crossing Nullarbor. We're just talking about a couple of 2-stall superchargers and a store that every other major location's got at least one of. 2 million people.
It might come as a surprise to you. Perth's not a big apple.
No.
Yeah, but compared to some of the other smaller apples I've been to that are way more Tesla infrastructure than this, and I've been to a lot of them around the world.
I do wonder, though, whether at some point Tesla's going to go, right, we've got the Semi now, we've got the Cybertruck now. Okay, now we actually need a mega charger network to link Perth to Sydney. And then just go, right, but that won't happen for 5 years, but then it will go bang.
I don't even think the Nullarbor is not that much of a biggie. Lincoln, Perth, Adelaide is not that much of a biggie. I drove across the Nullarbor when I was 18. The last time I did it, I was 50. You know, it's not like I've been across there every other year.
I'm thinking for semi-truck.
Absolutely. Different market, Rich. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But what I mean is, if you're going to be putting in a mega charger station, you're going to be putting in V3s with that for the cars. I just wonder whether that might be where their strategy is, linking Perth to Adelaide for that reason.
Well, I think what you're implying really is that we may have to wait until the Semi makes it compelling for them to Like they'll have customers that say, we'll buy X number if we can run them across the Nullarbor.
That would be 2030.
It doesn't have to be, because
I know
one great thing about Nullarbor is the land is kind of cheap. So you can put a forest of solar panels up and wind turbines or whatever to feed these things. And it will take a lot of power.
I agree, but yeah.
But Tesla have it in their powers they've got the battery storage. They got panels, but I don't know that cheap. I mean, you just go and buy Chinese panels.
Exactly.
And they've got the superchargers. And they can basically containerize that in a 40-foot sideless container, whatever you call those knockdown containers, plonk it next to the roadhouse, connect in the roadhouse's diesel generators as emergency backups, sell the power to the roadhouse every day.
Oh, yeah.
That isn't used by cars.
Yep.
There aren't that many. So, and you could probably sell it for, I don't know, 50 cents a kilowatt hour or more.
Anything less than diesel.
Anything less than diesel. And then when the occasional EV goes by, you go and feed it. And then you expand it to a mega charger.
When are we all going to start up a company to do that for ourselves? Take the roadhouses off grid.
Off grid. Well, the problem was, as we know, there was Mundrabilla, which was a Greek tragedy, whereby that could have been the poster child of a fantastic renewable energy setup.
I can't remember the story.
I think it was concluded in the end that there were some settings in the way the lead acid batteries were charged that I think caused them to be overcharged or something like that. And it wasn't anyone's sort of fault in particular, it was just unfortunate circumstance, which then caused those batteries to be consumed. And then that caused the whole system to basically fail. The problem was I had driven to Border Village between South Australia and WA, which is thousands of kilometres or whatever it was from Mundrabilla. And the guy there had heard about it and said, oh no, we're not going to get solar here because Mundrabilla doesn't work, and it was a disaster, and it was an expensive disaster. So I guess that was a real missed opportunity, and it was just dumb luck or bad luck that it went that way.
Those roadhouses aren't as discreet as you think either, because often 2 or 3 of them are owned by the same bigger business. So they're looking for more of a solution that's, but again, that's further down the road than solving this Perth problem. We need people moving around in Perth buying the cars, and then they want to drive over east, and then that's what comes next.
And to be magnanimous, Perth doesn't need a supercharger as much as us free unlimited lifetime supercharger owners want it. What we need is a supercharger in Merredin, one in Southern Cross.
Absolutely, yeah,
one in,
for sure.
One in
I
Jurien
don't want
Bay. Yeah. One in Jurien Bay, one in Geraldton, one in Williams, one in Kojonup, one in Albany, one in Ravensthorpe, one in Esperance, one in Norseman, and one in Kalgoorlie. There you go. I don't know how many that was, but that's probably about a dozen.
Yeah.
And then you can start moving towards, Billabong Roadhouse, Carnarvon, Nanyatara.
Yeah.
Insert name here, Karratha, Port Hedland, Pardue, Sandfire, Broome. Hey, Rob, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Off the top of my head. So.
Yeah, one of the things with the roadhouses, Richard, is and as Harold said, is they're scared of putting something different in. Diesels work for them.
Yeah.
Right. So what would be a better solution is a private company. I mean, I'd like to see Horizon do this, but they won't. But a private company goes to these places and says, we'll install the solar, we'll install the batteries, it belongs to us, but you have to buy the electricity off us at a set price for the next 20 years, whatever the contract is.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Now, so basically, it might cost, $1.5 million to set up this energy plant on leased land next to the roadhouse, and then you're guaranteed you sell them X amount of electricity for the next 20 years. And the roadhouses would say, okay, so it's 15% cheaper than my diesel, and I don't have to worry about the fuel truck not turning up.
And the price is rising.
Or any maintenance to the generator. They'll take it if it's a locked deal. Now, Horizon could do this, but they won't, because I don't think they're in the business of doing that sort of stuff. But Horizon are putting off-grid facilities in Aboriginal missions and all that sort of stuff. You know, so the value's there.
And there are installations where they are augmenting the diesel generation for small towns with solar. So that's already been done. I think that was at Timber Creek.
Okay.
You would have been there, Rob. There was all that.
Timber Creek is Marble Bar and Nullagine on the way up to Newman is. And I think it's working. I think they've got about 60% reduction in diesel.
Yeah.
Marble Bar. They were trucking in 400,000 litres of diesel a year. Right? Now, if it rains heavy, which it doesn't rain heavy up there very often, but when it does in the wet season, that truck doesn't get in. So you've got to have big storage tanks in those towns.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey guys, it's after 10:30. So we've just bagged a 3.5 hour. No, sorry, 3 hour. Whatever it is, I've lost count. 3 hour.
A 3-siders and a goon. Come on. Time scale's irrelevant.
Well, true, but we got no rocket launch because that was yesterday. That was last night at this time actually, which went well. Just a quickie. Did you guys see the footage of the
fairing capture?
Fairing capture.
Caught in the net.
And the one that missed. Did you see?
Oh, I didn't see the one that missed.
Well, the one that missed just fell off the back of the net. And I'm thinking well, there was an article saying it was on autopilot of some sort, but I'm thinking to the captain, just slow down, because he could see he was going faster than the actual thing was landing.
Surely the systems must be linked though, like that. It wouldn't.
If I was Elon Musk, I'd be screaming, going, "Why didn't you just slow down, you idiot?" Because all he had to do was slow down by a couple of knots, or just stop, and it would have just landed dead center. And then
that's what makes me think that they're actually still testing the algorithm. I don't think they'll leave it to manual. I think that's the low hanging fruit that they're not going for, fudging the system.
It is remarkable that it can literally float from outer space, and they can pilot, this thing all the way down to a ship on the ocean. It is
a fluttering leaf that falls 115 kilometres at a bazillion kilometres an hour, and then they get within Kui, and it's awesome.
Yeah, so that was good. So that was last night, but we've got no excuse to stay up too late tonight because there's nothing else happening.
I was about to say some good night from me.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it.
All right.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Okay, see you guys.
Catch you next.
See you all.
Catch you next week.
Au revoir.
See ya.
Arrivederci.
Ow.